Hello, this is the Fun Ideas Podcast. I'm your host now, Kamden Spies. I've hijacked this podcast again. And now with me is my guest once again. He's back, Mark Arnold. How's it going?
I'm doing okay.
It was a poor intro, but
Hey, that's about as good as I do. I laughed through one of them recently, but anyway, go ahead.
Now, the last time we were with Ben Olson, but the last time I interviewed you, I interviewed all about your career. I'm going to touch base on notes I didn't get to last time. And then I'm also going to talk about four things. So make your notes, the Fun Ideas Podcast, about its history, and this, not every one of them, but this long list of 6 pages of people you've met, and then your upcoming
the
books.
ones I remembered, yeah.
Yeah. See, a lot.
Mm-hmm.
You've met a lot more people than I have.
Yeah. I've met a lot more people famous than a lot of people have, but that's just because the trick is I used to run camera with a friend of mine, and we would do celebrity interviews, and did that for about 20 years. So yeah, you meet a lot of celebrities when you do that.
Yeah, about 1/4 of the, in fairness though to my list, about 1/5 of the list says kind of on it.
Yeah.
Like
then when you start writing books and everything, and you need to interview people for the books, then you meet a whole bunch of other people. So there you go. So
yeah, 4 people on this list I've met too, which makes it less impressive.
All right.
Jerry Beck is not an impressive person to meet.
Oh, it was when I did, but anyway.
It was when I did too. He walked up to me. I had that issue of Film Comment. You know the issue of Film Comment from like 72 with Greg Ford and everything?
Oh, yeah.
Bugs Bunny on the cover?
Yeah,
I was showing it to Craig Cawson. First thing Jerry says to me, he walks up behind me, points it to it, and I was showing it to Craig, Chuck's grandson, who've been trying to get on your show. I don't know why he can't respond. He says he'd do it, but he says, I got that the day it came out. That's how old I am, when he walks away. First interaction with Jerry.
Mine wasn't just as exciting. Mine was just, I knew of Jerry Beck because of course, of Mice and Magic, of Animania and Mind Rot, because he wrote a column for that. And I just basically, and I told him this before, so it's no secret, I idolized him from afar because I didn't know, I think he was in New York back in those days still. And it was in 91 when I went to the San Diego Comic Convention that, I started meeting people that I've always heard about. So that's
you lived in San Francisco at this time, didn't you?
By 91, yeah. I was living in San Francisco, yeah.
That's where you grew up.
Well, I grew up in the Bay Area, but I mean, where I was born and where, it was...
where you were born, you're part of the Hall of Fame.
It's like an hour drive south of San Francisco. Of course, nowadays...
Where you're born, you're part of the NBA Hall of Fame or something.
What?
You're part of the Hall of Fame of wherever you are, so.
Oh, okay. Oh, Saratoga, yeah. Well,
yeah.
That's because I was a celebrity at the Saratoga Museum once, but that's well, I mean, hey, I'm right up there with Steven Spielberg and volleyball star Kerry Walsh, and who else? Olivia de Havilland, Joan Fontaine. All these people. They didn't necessarily were born in Saratoga, but they put their foot down in Saratoga at one point. I actually wasn't born in Saratoga either, just because the hospital was in San Jose. But so if anybody says I was born in Saratoga, California, they're either lying or they were born at home, because there's no hospital in Saratoga.
Or they just put a hospital there and you had not known.
No, there's no hospital there. There wasn't a hospital certainly then, and there certainly isn't one now. So if they had a midwife come over, then maybe. But it's like most people would say, I was born in Saratoga. You weren't, And so I don't make that claim, even though I did grow up in Saratoga. But, anyway.
Yeah, maybe before it was named Saratoga, someone during the gold rush had a baby on a wagon or something over there.
You know, I, if you don't mind me just jabbering away about my hometown, um, it was originally called Tollgate. Why? Because it had a toll gate. It was
I
on a
think it's
road that
Colgate. I think you said Colgate, and I was like,
toll gate, like Tollgate cookies, not
yeah,
Colgate
I was
toothpaste.
thinking like the Jack Benny sponsor.
Yeah, not Colgate toothpaste. Tollgate, like Tollgate cookies. Anyway, all right.
Yeah. Now let's get into this. Jack Benny's a good start for this because I was going to ask you one thing I didn't ask. So you were like me, where you were basically interested in comic books, cartoons, stuff like that.
Yeah.
But would the live action stuff come at the same time? Like I'm talking about live action, like Jack Benny. I mean, I'm sure you are also a silent film fan, stuff like that.
Yeah, I mean, it was not easily accessible. They'd play stuff. We're talking
Right.
early 1970s. But you know, when they had stuff on, usually where you saw silent films back then was actually at the pizza parlor. There was a chain called Straw Hat, another one called Shakey's Pizza, and they would show silent movies. The reason why is because you could you could show them while everybody's just jabbering away eating pizza. So I mean, you know, because it's a silent movie.
Now they have TVs blaring all day.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, but back then they had, you know, there's no flat screen TV, and you know, so they showed 16 millimeter film of old Laurel and Hardy, Our Gang, and that's where I saw all that stuff, you
Yeah.
know, originally. So
Yeah, because with me, the only live action stuff I was familiar with as much was I was a little bit familiar with Three Stooges growing up.
yeah,
But
well,
Jack Benny, George Burns, all of that came much later.
right. But you got to remember, when I was a kid, all those guys are still alive, or a lot
Yeah.
of them were.
Stan Laurel wasn't.
What?
Stan Laurel wasn't.
No, he was not, but he died a year before I was born. But when I was a kid, two of the Three Stooges were alive, of the good ones. I mean, Moe and Larry. I mean, yes, Curly Joe was alive and Joe Besser was still alive, but Bud Abbott was still alive.
Costello died in like 60 something, right?
Costello died in 59, you
Oh,
know,
really?
so, but
Yeah.
Abbott lived till 74. So
Yeah.
Jack Benny was still alive, and he used to appear on like everything, including with George Burns.
He appeared with Burns on the Carson show a lot
Yeah.
during the 70s.
And well, even on his own specials, he appeared, you know, and of course, Lucille Ball was alive. Johnny Carson was alive. The first celebrity death, Groucho Marx was still alive. Zeppo was still alive too, and Gummo.
Harpo was not.
Harpo was not. But the first celebrity death I remember was Wally Cox. And I was a little kid, and my mom told me, and I knew of him for two reasons. He was the voice of Underdog, and he was a regular panelist on Hollywood Squares. And, you know, suddenly he was gone. And he died at the age of 48, which at the time seemed kind of old. Now it's like, wow, I've outlived him by 7 years. So there you go. Trying to think of other golden age comedians. Of course, Jerry Lewis was alive. Dean Martin. Chaplin was still alive. Charlie Chaplin was still alive. Buster Keaton was not. Harold Lloyd. What?
Chaplin was still alive, but at that point, Chaplin wasn't. Really.
He was basically retired, but you knew
he wasn't active.
Around. No,
you wouldn't have known Chaplin was alive.
Well, I did know he was alive because, you know, I'd see his films like you're asking, silent films, and I'd ask my dad, is he still around? Oh yeah, he's still around. He doesn't do anything anymore, but you know, that's what my dad's typical thing. But Harold Lloyd, he was around when I was a kid, but I didn't know he died because he died in 1971, and I wasn't really aware of Harold Lloyd until probably about 7-8 years later. So, oh well.
All right, let's catch up where we left off by two questions. Right. Number one, when were you born? And number two, what's your name, Mark?
Wait a minute. What are these questions again? When was I born?
I don't know. I'm doing something like a game show.
2:13 p.m. December 15th, 1966. How about that? I know that.
That's good enough. That's all we need.
In San Jose, California, where the hospital was.
We've caught up. Okay, this is that was my version of William Conrad hearing something.
Oh, okay. And my middle name's David. So there we go.
Yeah. That was too much info.
Too much info.
Now, the question I was going to ask you about that I didn't get to go to is about books you contributed to. Because I talked all about every one of your books you've written.
Yeah.
Other than the ones that you're upcoming that we're going to talk about at the end. And you wrote one of the books I didn't get to talk to you about was the Harvey Comics books with Leslie Cabarga and Jerry Beck that you co-wrote.
Okay, well, I didn't co-write it. I helped them compile it. I mean, really, those are it was a 5-volume set done for Dark Horse.
Yeah.
And Jerry Beck co-wrote them with Leslie Cabarga. I wrote the back cover blurb on the Hot Stuff one. And I believe I wrote a forward in one of them, if I remember correctly. I could be wrong on that.
I think you wrote the one with the little kids one, I think.
And then I helped them pick out stories, but I didn't do any of the scanning, and they had the final say. So if they didn't want to do it, it was their product. Then Leslie did 2 more. He did a smaller Casper one and a smaller Hot Stuff one, and I don't know how much I contributed to it, but we were in conversations. And then there's one final project, which was the Casper 60th anniversary book, which was a hardback. This is also Dark Horse. And the scan of Casper number 6, which is the first Harvey issue, is my copy. So
I'm just curious, by the way, do you have all the Casper issues?
I do now.
What?
I do now.
You didn't then?
No. I got the last issue I was missing about 3 or 4 years ago.
Now, you also contributed to Back Issue magazine, which I talked to you about.
Yeah, and still
the one article that's found that I was able to actually find that actually seemed significant enough to ask you about was the Black Archie interview.
Oh, Fast Willie Jackson? Yeah.
Yeah.
What about it?
I'm just curious, how did you get in contact with him? Was it an idea from...
Well, on all these back issue articles, Michael Urey basically puts out the word if you're one of his regular writers. And he just kind of says, well, our next issue is going to be this subject. And he has the articles pretty much set up. I mean, you can offer suggestions, but mostly and then some are pre-assigned already. Right. Like, if somebody's big expert on Spider-Man, let's say, I'm probably not going to get it because he has people who do that. And I'm not interested in doing that all that much. Unless it's like something goofy, like Spidey Super Stories with the Electric Company, something quirky like that. That's where I come in. So I do all the goofball stuff. So I think he did. I forgot the issue. If you have the issue, it probably tells. Is that an issue where it's like Archie knockoffs or something like that?
It's the only issue that they offer online, I think, on their website. Okay.
I mean, if I remember, the subject was either Archie knockoffs or black comic characters or both. One of the two. I don't remember the subject. It was both. And he put out the thing, and it's like, of course, I knew Fast Willie Jackson just because I used to scour the quarter bins, now usually like $1 bin or $2 bin. But in the old days, I just buy any old crap that wasn't superhero, and I go, hey, that's pretty funny, a black version of Archie. Hey, I'll pick that up. Now, I didn't know who I was going to interview, and that's typically what it is. I get the assignment, and then I have to figure out, have I interviewed somebody? Can I interview somebody? Or do I need to interview somebody and stuff like that? Or can I just write this without it? Sometimes I have to. But in the case of that one, I found out that Bertram Fitzgerald actually was still alive. He's no longer living now. And on a whim, I think either I called him or I emailed him. I don't remember how I first contacted him. And he said, yeah, I did that. And I did this other series called Golden Legacy, which it was a 16-issue series, and each one profiled some historical black person in history that a lot of people never talk about, or think about. Some are more obvious, like there's an issue on Martin Luther King Jr. Most people know who he is, but like the author of the Three Musketeers, Alexander Dumas, not everybody knows that was a black guy, for example. And there's others and everything. I can't remember all 16 issues, but anyway, so I caught hold of him and I said, hey, I want to interview you for Fast Willie Jackson. And he's pretty low tech, so I did it over the phone with my tape recorder back in the days before I had my digital recorder. So my recording still exists, but it's kind of So. I mean, but yeah, he's very accommodating, and we talked about how difficult it was putting those comics out and everything like that. And then he sent me stuff like Fast Willie Jackson. There's only 7 issues published, but he sent me the cover or a proof of it of the 8th issue. So, that's in there, stuff like that. So,
And one of the things I was going to ask about, by the way, is at what point do you give up on superheroes? Because my whole thing of superheroes, I can't go into this later. But my whole thing of superheroes is my interest in superheroes is until about 1960, because I think after a while, like, Superman, Batman, they were really interesting. They had tragic backstories, but they were still interesting. But then I think that after a certain point, Iron Man just became a pity party.
well,
Spider-Man doesn't complain.
I always purport to being anti-superhero. I really am not. I'm basically anti-current superhero. So, in fact, right now, you've seen those Marvel Masterworks books.
Yeah.
Well, originally they came out in hardback editions, and then more recently they came out in paperback editions. Now they're coming out in this smaller paperback that's like 6x9, and they're only $16 each. And I go, well, that's better than the hardback that was 50 or the paperback that was 30. I can afford $16. And so, I've gotten the first 20 issues of Fantastic Four and the first 20 issues of Spider-Man, stuff like that. And I'm reading them and I'm enjoying them. And, I thought about this a long time ago, but I still think about it now. It's like, why don't I buy superheroes? Why am I not like the typical collector and buy all this stuff? I'll tell you why, because superheroes are no longer fun. When I was a kid, superheroes, yes, were made fun of, but I mean, I grew up watching Batman with Adam West. That was a goofy show. Anybody wandering around with tights or a cape or something was considered strange. It wasn't considered everyday wear. And and so I never took it that seriously. Now, of course, I can take talking ducks seriously or talking rabbits seriously or whatever, but that's because that even goes one step further on the imagination scale. But the problem with superheroes for me is when they started treating them really seriously, like they were important, like their lives mattered. And it's like
they were always important. I mean, like Batman always had,
but I mean important in that you had to care about what's going to happen to them, because Batman's back was broken by Bane this month. Oh, what's going to happen? He's out of commission. It's like in the old days, you had a story. If he broke his back, well, it'd say the end, the next issue would be fine. They didn't have this continuity that you had to buy 37 other issues, and you were sitting there mourning the death of Superman or whatever. You were just like, oh, he's battling this, like Batman back in the old days, he'd battle creatures, goofy creatures like Batmite and Mr. Mixelplix, I guess, and those type.
Mixelplix was Superman, dude.
Oh, okay. Well, I don't even remember. Anyway, but that type of stuff,
Right.
And Joker was considered like Cesar Romero is not like the way Joker was on later incarnation, where he's like a homicidal maniac. It's like he was just a goofy guy that laughed hysterically and played pranks and practical jokes. It was all kind of lighthearted. It wasn't this, Dark Knight and it's like, and that's where I dropped out.
I'm in the middle of that, Mark. I'm in the middle of it. I'm going to share my opinion on my podcast. Okay. So I'm in the middle to where I don't think superheroes, because I'm the one who thinks that there are people who, like, on Facebook, I argued with somebody because he says, well, if it's not Adam West, it's not the real Batman. And this person was convinced that Adam West had to be the real Batman. I'm like, there was a Batman before Adam West, dude.
Yes. Yeah.
Like, that's not how life works. And this is probably the same guy who says the Addams Family has to be like the TV show.
Oh.
Because when there was an
not
Addams
the comic
Family before,
not the comic panel in New Yorker.
Yeah. Yeah. He's like, this is the kind of person who would say, no, there was no comic panel. And if you would show him the picture, he would still say there was no comic.
Oh, well, then he's stupid.
Yeah.
Because I mean, I can argue that Adam West is my favorite Batman, and and he is. Right. But I know there was Batman movie serials. I have the DVDs.
Right.
You know.
Like the Batman, my whole thing is like, I think it's got to be the middle.
Yeah.
My thing is like, it's got to be like the Fleischer Supermans or those Batman, Bruce Tim
Oh yeah. The
shows, which
New
I think
Adventures, or whatever.
those are the quintessential ways that they should be done. Where he's not like really stupid. Like, I think Batman, I think the first few Batman Web episodes, he actually was genuinely a good superhero. He was actually, the very first thing Batman does is talk about his dead parents.
Yeah.
So that whole thing is still very clear in the Batman TV show.
Yeah.
But then after a while, he starts breakdancing and all that. I'm like,
yeah.
oh.
I mean, they got goofy on that show. I get it. What's funny, I have to interrupt on this, is what's funny is when I was a kid, or not when I was a kid, but now, people that are my age, they go, when I was a kid, I thought it was deadly serious. And I said, you did? Wow, you must have been held back a couple grades, because that was a dumb show when I was a kid. It's dumb now, but I love it. That's why it's because I like campy stuff.
Right.
So
yeah, now here's something I got to do that you didn't. I got to take a class on superheroes in college.
Wow.
And we had a whole week of just watching the Batman TV show. And we this was the whole time in class watching it and talking about it.
Yeah.
Strategically, we would like watch clips of Adam West talking, and we would write about it. It was a neat class.
Yeah. So,
but my thing is like, I don't understand the Batman versus Superman thing, because the whole thing is them just brawling out and bloody murder, and then
you mean the more current
different
ones that they've been making with like Ben Affleck and stuff like that?
Yeah. But like the Dark Knight Returns.
Yeah.
I'm like even I can put like. They got to make sure that Superman's like in the real world, which that didn't make any sense to me. So Superman's got to be some conservative weirdo, and Batman's got to be some social justice warrior, which that didn't make sense to me. And I'm like, they're both supposed to be social justice warriors. That's their job.
Right.
And like, there's a difference between like, actual blood and gore versus, Batman's, those shows are homicidal and he's serious and all that, but he's still willing to. The idea of him cracking a sly joke at the end of something isn't a problem.
Yeah,
they're really weird show. They're really dark shows, but that's what superheroes can be. But he can still be funny sometimes, because like it's not so taboo if he's funny.
Right. I mean, for me, humor goes a long way. And so like if you just stick right now with the Marvel comic universe films, my favorite ones are the Guardians of the Galaxy films. And I like Thor Ragnarok, and I like the last couple Avengers films. Why do I like those? Well, there's more humor in those.
Right.
Everybody raved about how great Black Panther was. It was a good movie, but it was also a boring movie, I hate to say. Shang-Chi was a good movie, but it was also a boring movie. I mean, I'll still see these things, but I'm going to call it as it is. I mean, there was some funny stuff in the latter one, but it's like I like it a little more funny. Now, most people are the opposite of me. They go, "What? Ragnarok was so stupid. They had dumb jokes the whole time." Yeah, that's why it was entertaining for 2.5 hours instead of like I haven't even seen that new one, The Batman, with the guy from
I've heard it's good though, but that was my thing.
I hear it's good and I hear it's bad, and it's like the people who say it's bad, it's probably going to be my opinion, because this one guy said, I fell asleep twice, but I did finish my popcorn. And I thought,
my opinion though is someone says it's bad because it's not Adam West. I'm like,
no, that's not the reason why it's bad. It's bad because
those are the people who I'm like,
no,
dude.
I mean, I even like the Michael Keaton ones. I even like the what's the guy that was in the Dark Knight ones? That actor. I always forget all the Batman names. You know what I'm talking about. Those
Ledger with the Joker. That's all I can tell you.
Yeah, that one. Yeah, well, that's one of 3 of those. Those aren't bad. Where I thought that they went south is when you said like Batman versus Superman. Yeah, I don't like that Superman. I'm more of a Superman fan than a Batman fan anyway, because Superman actually has superpowers. Who'd have thought that you'd like a superhero hero with superpowers. It's
Right.
like Batman's just like a guy with like you or me, but he's wearing a goofy
Yeah,
costume. But
the whole
he
thing,
could
though,
die pretty easily.
which no, the whole thing is though that we're supposed to want to be superpowered. We're supposed to want to be the superheroes. We're not supposed to hate. We're not supposed to feel bad for them, right?
Right.
That was my
Right.
whole thing. Like
Yeah.
the whole point of the movie is them like grueling over their. I had to watch this for class too. I had to watch it again, which really sucked.
Superman versus Batman. Yeah. Or
We actually
whatever.
had to watch the. We actually had to watch the Snyder cut and then the actual version. Okay, I'm gonna
Painful.
tell you right now, the Snyder cut's actually decent.
Oh, okay. Because I don't
The
like
actual
him.
version. Okay,
Period.
just
But
imagine like the actual Did you see the regular Justice League?
no, I told you I jumped off of the bandwagon on these. I mean, on the DC ones, I haven't seen any of the more recent Batmans or Superman. I saw Superman Man of Steel, and that's what turned me off of Superman, because my Superman wears the red underwear on the outside. I know it's not underwear. My Superman has navy blue, bright blue, not this navy blue ribbed
I didn't
costume
get the
shit.
dark. I
Yeah.
didn't get the dark blue thing either.
Yeah, I like it to be a lighter blue. I mean, to me, Christopher Reeve personifies Superman.
Right.
George Reeves isn't bad, but I think he's a little too chunky. That's my only problem with him.
Yeah. I one time heard this fan theory that someone said, by the way, that the George Reeves Superman, the Adam West Batman, and the Linda Carter Wonder Woman is in the same universe. It
Yeah,
seems a
I've
little
heard
weird.
that before. Yeah.
I've seen a little weird, but I kind of wish it was true.
Yeah.
Because I kind of wish there was like a comic book of that.
Well, they could make one, they did Batman 66
and they did
Wonder Woman
one,
77. Now they're doing Superman 78. I saw it at the store, but he looks like Christopher Reeve, not George Reeves. But anyway.
Yeah. Oh, we had to watch the movie Hollywoodland too. Have you seen that movie?
I've seen that.
It's a really weird movie.
I like the movie, but I thought Ben Affleck was not the right choice. But I don't care for him as an actor anyway. I think he's the only movie I really like him in is Argo, and that was just a surprise.
Yeah,
anyway.
No, I think it was like it's like I compared it the vice versa when we watched it. The film Gods and Monsters about the guy who made Frankenstein.
Yeah,
it's the exact same film except for with Superman.
Mm-hmm.
Because it's like, well, you got this random schmo just coming into the life of someone who just died, right? You randomly put some random dude to follow around this guy who's just about to die. That's the plot. Now, anyways, on to the other books you've contributed to. Okay. Archie Comics, you did something for Craig Gale.
Yeah. He did an Archie history book. I basically helped him out with factual information, stuff like that, and wrote 4 pages of the thing. I'll say it again now because there's one point where he got all pissed off because I said, and I don't care at this point, that I wrote part of the book, and I wrote 4 pages. It was the 4 pages about the Archie TV show. I got that assignment and I wrote those pages. So, and they weren't rewritten. So I wrote those pages. It's like, I don't get an author credit on the cover, but I still wrote those 4 pages. Anyway.
And you also contributed to a book called The Comedy of Jack Davis.
It's like I wrote an introduction to it and I helped put it together as with Mort Todd as a Kickstarter during the pandemic here. And it was basically material that was already produced, but we basically rescanned it. They were both specials that came out from Cracked back in the 90s that Mort Todd compiled, but we had the brilliant idea. It's like, let's rescan it, make it look better than it did then, and issue it as a paperback book, and so that's what we did. So on 2 of them.
And finally, I never got to talk to you about this because I didn't even know about this. You've written some comic books now.
I have.
You've written for the Pink Panther comic books.
I have.
What was that like, and how did you get that assignment?
You get this that's not the first comic books I wrote. I mean, if you're really doing your research, my first published comic books were 2 Atomic Mouse stories for Shanda Fantasy Arts. that current Dick Tracy writer used to publish. And he and I became friends. He used to work at Harvey way back in the day, and he found out I could write because of Harvey Fun Time, my old fanzine. And so I wrote a couple Atomic Mouse stories, and those are my first published comic book stories back in the
You
90s.
get credit for it?
Yes, and I got paid too.
You got credit for it?
I got credit for it.
I didn't know they were doing credits back then still.
Yeah.
At what point did they start giving actual credits to comic book artists and writers?
Well, I mean, it depends on what company you're talking about. Marvel did back in the 60s, but you know, it's like it took Archie till the 80s, and Harvey never did. So it's like
and
Dell and never did.
Dell never did, but you could figure it out really quickly.
Yeah. Well, you can with Harvey too if you have a keen eye like I do, but it's like let's see, and then I did a Richie Rich parody for a giant. It's called Giant Shanda Animal instead of Annual, because that was it, they had animals in these things. So it was, but Shanda the Panda was his like, what's the word, his
so lost right now.
Main title. This is Mike Curtis's comic book line.
Okay.
And so my third story was for a comic he published called Giant Shanda Animal, where I did a parody of Richie Rich, but with animal characters. So that was my third story. Then you asked me how I got involved with American mythology. Well, they started publishing comics on all the stuff I was writing books about. Underdog Comics, what are the other ones? Pink Panther comics, Three Stooges comics. Casper Comics. And so I said, hey, I can write stories for this. And the two negatives about the whole experience, I got a Three Stooges story published, a Pink Panther story published. I don't think I got a Casper story published.
I think we got one of the other. I think from
I got an Ann the Aardvark story published.
That's what I was going to say. You got an Ann the Aardvark story.
Yeah,
published.
and I think that's
it. Ann Aardvark on an Expector story.
Now, they don't have the Harvey license anymore, so there's no more Caspers, but they're still doing Three Stooges and stuff like that. The problem I have with them, and I can say it on here because I'm probably never going to write for them again. I mean, what are they going to do? They pay way too low, and they reject stories very easily or ignore stories that you turn in. So you're doing all this work basically for nothing. Now, when I was like your age, I was willing to do a lot of stuff for nothing because I figured, well, you got to start somewhere. But at this age, you know, if you're going to ignore my stuff, that's worse than paying me low money. If you're paying me low money, but at least you're paying attention to my stuff and publishing me, like that's why I keep working for Back Issues. They don't pay a lot, but they publish me. So I'll keep working for them. You know,
Gary Beck doesn't pay me anything, but he publishes me.
Yeah. And you know, and that's the thing. I mean, it depends on who it is. Is American mythology, if they're going to ignore my stuff, you know, it's like, and I've complained to the other people on other podcast episodes, you know, I said, have you had that problem? And it's usually the artists. They go, no, I get my stuff published all the time. And then they've all said, oh, let's contribute something together. And so then you can get your writing in. And none of those ever worked, you know, sorry to say, guys. But, you know, so I got a few published with American mythology. I was happy for what I did. I'd be willing to do more if A, they would start paying attention to my story ideas faster, and B, if they actually paid a decent amount.
The one thing I did like, though, is I did like that they republished, like each story came with a republished story from like a previous incarnation.
Yeah. Well, they were like Harvey was in the 90s. They got the rights to, you know, older books and stuff like that. So
because I did like it to where, but I loved it to where like the Panther doesn't say anything, and in the middle of it, it's like an old story. Back when the Panther spoke.
Yeah. Well, you could say that about the animated cartoons. You know, the theatricals, he never spoke. Yeah. But then there's that series with Matt Frewer where he spoke. So
right, you know. which I don't even think I've even heard him speak other than that one Rich Little thing.
Oh, well, that's a different situation where there's a couple cameos where he just, you know, like something like, or the craziest. Why can't animals be more like that's
like
that. I should have that line memorized, but anyway.
What? Oh. Yeah, but so one of the things that but I always tell people, like somebody was talking to me about the Roadrunner comics. I'm like, well, in fairness, the Roadrunner comics and the Tom and Jerry speaking, that was an idea of the Roadrunner speaking was in rhymes was the idea of Michael Maltese, right? And the Tom and Jerry speaking thing was the idea of MGM writers.
Yeah.
The comic strip in the comic books. So that was not anything that came from out of school.
Right. There was a reason for it that I do know. I mean, it's like if you had a comic book of total pantomime strips all the way through, then, you know, people are like, you know, always thought comic books were for kids. And it's like, if we have nothing for a kid to read, you know, hey, what is this garbage that we're foisting on our kids? So they had to make them talk for that reason. But that never really bothered me, because it's like it just was like, it was just strange. Yes, Bugs Bunny lived in a house. Yes, Mary Sniffles hung around with this girl named Mary Jane, who he never did in the movie.
I always tell people that it's like DC Comics. The Looney Tunes comic books are Earth 2. The Looney Tunes comic strips are Earth 3. It's like Crisis of the Infinite Earth. And
it never bothered me because the stories are pretty good. So it's like, as long as that happened, I was okay with it. So I was always a story person anyway.
Well, like you could understand Donald Duck when he speaks. That was the other thing.
Yeah. Which have you read early Mads, the Harvey Kurtzman comic? Okay, so I always liked it, Mickey Rodent, where they have Donald Duck and they write it like he speaks on quack quack or quagga, you know. It's like, and then it has a little asterisk. Sorry, you know, Donald Duck speaks totally unintelligibly. From this point forward, we'll write it as dialogue in plain English. I always thought that was very funny, because the only attempt in the comic book to try to write how Donald Duck speaks. So
yeah, I remember reading that, and I was reading it. I remember I had the Mad 50 magazine, the Mad 50 book, the hardback book, like it's 50 Years of Mad, the red. Yeah, I was reading that one time at school. One kid's playing games next to me. I'm reading Mad. And I went to a high school where, you know, Catholic high school, you don't play games on your computer or you're gonna get in trouble. So well, one of the brothers of Sacred Heart walks by me and looks at me, and the disciplinarian's right next to him. He says, such sinful things. He walks away. And then the disciplinarian looks at him for a second, looks at me, he's like, at least you're reading. And I'm like, I love this. How far we've grown.
Yeah. Well, it's kind of like me. It's kind of like me at work, you know. So I have my job. I'm not going to say where I work, but, you know, it's in healthcare. I'll say that. But, you know, sometimes it gets slow. So I don't have anything to do. But they don't like you sitting there, you know, going like this all day. And, you know, but if I have a book and I'm reading a book, they tend to turn a blind eye. And it's like, well, a book is like a little more obnoxious than a cell phone in a certain respect. But hey,
I work in a library, and
whatever floats your boat. So it's like, you know, so I you know, the good thing is sometimes it's slow enough. I get caught up on my reading. It's like, so I'm reading a lot more things than I used to.
And I would be like reading this comic book in class, and they'd be like, Brooks, get off your computer. And it's like, y'all need to be productive. And he'd look at me, and Alfred E. Newman's on the cover, and he wouldn't say anything. He'd be like, okay. This would be like that one class with like a priest.
Yeah.
So that would be even more. That would make it even more funnier. And it's like, you know, it's like with the usual gang of idiots right in the cover, and it's like, well, God bless America, I guess.
Yeah.
Now, part 2 of this fun little conversation. We're going to talk about your Fun Ideas podcast. I'm sure you've heard of it.
I think so.
Why a podcast, Mark?
Why not? I mean, well, wait, you want to put me on a broadcast station? Nobody's gonna, you know. Actually, years ago, I had a friend. I won't name his name just in case. But he wanted to do a radio show with me, and I always said no, because he claimed he was going to get all the guests, which he probably could have gone all the guests, but he wanted me to get all the advertising. And I kept telling him, That's not how radio works. You don't get your own advertising. The station gets the advertising, and they choose to put you on and everything like that. So we never did a show. But in the back of my mind, it always was like, it'd be fun to have my own show, TV show, movies, or radio show, or whatever. Now with this newer technology where anybody can be a broadcaster at any time, well, hey, now it wasn't my idea to do a podcast. In fact, if anything, I wasn't thinking about it at all. I was like, I just don't have any time to do it. And then so my friend Lee, who runs Lee's Comics, he was the one, oh, I think you should do a podcast. I go, I don't want to do a podcast. I don't have any time to do a podcast. Well, I guess I do, because this is number, I don't know what number we're on, 164 or something like that. Might be 165. I lost count because I'm always a few episodes ahead.
Let's just put it this way. You're 600 episodes away from being The Simpsons.
Hey, how about that? But I'm not trying for any records. It's like I try to get out one a week. Originally, I didn't, because I didn't know how many I would do and stuff like that. But if occasionally I mess up, and not really mess up, I just run out of episodes, well, I'll run some repeats for a while.
Well, I'm here doing this, so you run out of ideas.
Yeah. But with this one, this one takes me through May, so I'm covered through May, and then I have another one in a couple days, so that goes into June. So there we go. Now, once I started doing it, I mean, I'm this way about projects. Is like I always kind of wanted to emulate like the Beatles or something like that, or Disney, for where always wanted to do the next big thing. Unfortunately, I have like limited resources, so I don't have income from my animated films so I could build a theme park. I don't have people like Brian Epstein and George Martin walking around saying, hey, these guys are great, giving us money and contracts, and here, do your stuff. I have to do it basically myself, and that's the way I've always kind of done it. It's like, oh, I'd like to be published. Nobody wants to publish me. Okay, I'll publish myself. And that's how I started the fanzine. Oh, I'd like to have a book published. Nobody wants to publish me. Okay, I'll publish a book. And that's how the book started. Oh, I'd like to be on TV or radio or something. Well, I'll do it myself. And that's what I'm doing now. It's like,
You think you have, how many people do you think listen or watch your show?
This podcast?
Yeah.
It just depends on who it is. I mean,
Yeah.
I can tell you the top ones. I mean, it's usually when I have a bigger celebrity type guest, like Keith Scott was a big one.
I know Milton Knight was a bigger one.
Which one?
Milton Knight was.
Yeah, that was okay. And Fang, who was in Paul Revere and the Raiders, he got a lot of hits. But some really surprised me. Like there's this guy named Martin Grams. Granted, he has written some books, and he's about like me. He puts on this Mid-Atlantic celebrity show, stuff like that.
That's the nostalgia convention?
Yeah, that one. And it's like, but I think he is either number 1 or number 2 of the all-time highest rated episodes. And it's like, what did he do? It's like, anybody
right now,
what?
If Amber or I's, that first show of Amber and I is in the top 10, that's because Amber and I had to relook at it 100 times over. So, that half of it is us.
Well, it also depends on the subject matter. If it's not the person, I did an episode like that actually got viewed a lot too, because we were talking Rocky and Bullwinkle. People love Rocky and Bullwinkle,
but
and of course,
half of them were us. I think we might have both gone on to that to help to go look back at the transcript probably at least 100 times.
Okay. And then Amber was on Solo a couple of weeks ago, so
thank you for the nice words, by the way.
She just randomly called me up and said, "Can we do it again?" And I go, "Sure."
Because I suggested it to her.
Oh, okay, all right, and that's how that happened. But that one's done pretty well, and people are like, "Oh, I didn't know you were doing voiceover." So I hope she does something with her career. It seems like she's going for it. But back on me, I think the number 1 ranking is probably, is the last time I looked, because I can always check, it's Tom Richmond from Mad. And
It's a good one.
I think I don't know. Well, he has a blog site, and he sends out emails all the time, and he did promote it pretty well. So, that helps. But
Yeah.
he's still a known quantity that even if he didn't plug it that strongly, people would still seek it out. Like, I don't think Scott, the example, did much promotion for it, but it's gotten a lot of views
People
because people
adore him,
go,
though.
they like him, and it's like, okay, great. So, um, I'm sure there's a few others like Gary Puckett, but all the musician type guys, because they're kind of well known, 60s, 60s and 70s rock star types, Chip Douglas did well. So
Yeah, when I was
there we go.
looking, I actually looked at the top rated ones. One of them was also Jerry Beck, I think, was another top rated.
Yeah, well,
one.
people know him too.
Yeah. But I actually listened to your thing with Jerry, and here's what I like here. I think you did one of the best interviews with Jerry Beck. You know why?
Why?
Because you asked nothing of what you didn't ask anything about his life and career, which that made it even more fun.
Yeah,
So
well,
it's just like you talked about what did you hate about Space Jam, which I'm like,
yeah,
I'm thinking to myself, how many people have asked this to Jerry in the past 6 months?
yeah. Well, I mean, like even when I, interviewed Scott Shaw, I've known Scott, I've known Jerry for almost 40 years. Okay.
Right.
And it's like, if I haven't known him personally, I've known him professionally. So I'd say 30 years I've known him personally, 40 years professionally or so. And it's like, everybody asks them the same old thing, how did you get interested in animation? What made you do it? It's like, and I don't want to ask that. First of all, I already know the answer. And second of all, like the most interesting thing, I don't remember on the Jerry Beck one, except him showing me a bunch of stuff. I have to look at it again. But on the Scott Shaw one, I asked him this interesting question because I always thought he was born in San Diego because he raves about San Diego, and yet he was born in New York. So I was like, Scott, what's all this San Diego love? Well, I didn't live in New York very long. And I go, oh, okay, all right. And then he went on and he talked about his dad and stuff like that. I knew nothing about his dad. So,
right.
But I learned that early on. I mean, if you're going to go on in the, during this show, talking about all the various celebrities I've met, I mean, I'll mention one ahead of time that cued me in on how to deal with interviews. Okay. So George Takei, Sulu, everybody knows him for Sulu.
Yeah.
Okay. So we had the opportunity, and this is early on when I first started. I wasn't interviewing. I had a friend named Dane. I still am friends with him. We were not as close. He's the one I used to do all the different interviews with. I did celebrity interviews with him for about 20 years. And so we met anybody and everyone under the sun. And what I learned in doing interviews with him, I'd usually be running the camera, but I'd write the questions. He'd ask the questions because he always wanted to be on camera. But with George Takei, I realized most people know him as Sulu. Most people, and he was still making the movies. I think Star Trek 4 was the most recent film at the time. So he's still in the public eye. But I mean, I'm sure he was bored to tears talking about Sulu and Star Trek, even though that's what he typically did in interviews. Well, I did a little background research on his what he'd done, and he was on the Los Angeles City Council for a couple of years, and he was doing things with the mayor and stuff like that. I forgot all the stuff he did, but I said to Dane, I said, why don't you ask him about that? Get him to talk. And so Dane said, all right. And this is early on when we first started in his interviews things. So everybody says, Mr. Takei, what is your favorite Star Trek episode? Mr. Takei, how is it like playing Sulu? Mr. Takei, what's William Shatner really like? And it's like, and then Mr. Takei, you worked in the city council with Tom Bradley is the mayor of Los Angeles. What was that like? Oh my God, his eyes lit up and he says, oh, it was really wonderful. I had all this opportunity to do this, that, and the other. You couldn't get him to shut up after that. He spoke for like 20 minutes about it. And he was so happy. And I learned a big lesson that day. I said, it's fun to ask somebody a question that they don't normally get asked because then you will get a better answer. So it's easier to do that if you know the person. I mean, I didn't know George Takei personally, but I knew his career, so that helped. But if you throw me saying, oh, this guy wrote this book, it's a little bit more difficult for me just to do that randomly, but I tend to work my way around it, it's like, and try to get interesting responses. So there we go.
Now, last few questions about the Fun Ideas podcast. Where did the name Fun Ideas come from? Because either A, this seems like either one of two things. Either A, you were up all night, you could not come up with an idea. Or B, you just came up with an idea on the spot.
Well, okay. Fun Ideas originally, my fanzine was called the Harveyville Fun Times. Oh. I always envisioned, and it was a take on the Chicago Sun Times. Ha ha ha. Around the same time, and this is after I started mine, McDonald's started putting out McDonaldland Fun Times, and I go, those bastards, they took my pun. Anyway, so I was a Disney fan. I always liked what Walt Disney did, and I always liked it. Even in my small shoestring way, I said, I should develop a company, and not just call it the Harveyville Fun Times, because I don't want to be known just as the Harvey guy, even though I am known as the Harvey guy. It's like I want to be known for other stuff. And so
that's what people are going to call you from now on, Mark, the Harvey guy.
Yeah, I know. And so I was going to call it, I said, I like the Fun Times bit. And I like Walt Disney Productions more than the later incarnations, the Walt Disney Company. I was like Walt Disney Productions. I always thought Productions was classier. And so I was going to call it Fun Times Productions. Well, I found out there actually was a Fun Times Productions. I don't know if they're still around, but and I said, damn it, I want to use it. So it was my dad who actually said, well, why don't you come up with fun ideas? And I think I had already started using a light bulb logo anyway. And so I said, I know where it came from partially. And the reason why, have you seen the movie Never Cry Wolf?
No.
Okay. But it's a Disney film, as Charles Martin Smith, about a guy who goes up to the frozen north to follow the wolves. It's a good movie. Check it out sometime. Anyway, but he's up there with the Eskimos. And this is when Disney was starting to change, where they're, like there's a scene in it where he eats a rat, and it's like, this is a Disney film, Mickey Mouse. He's eating a rat. It's kind of interesting. This is when Disney started changing and Eisner came along. But anyway, there's this one scene where he's up there talking with the Eskimos, and he talks about his plans of what he's going to do. And the one Eskimo says, since he doesn't speak a lot of English, he says, good idea. He just says it like that. And that kind of was what inspired the Fun Ideas. And
that's so much backstory on something.
Yeah, nobody's ever asked me before. There you go. I'm just like George Takei. So, and you might ask, and I'm going to tell you anyway, why don't I call it Mark Arnold? Blah blah blah. I've never been one to like throw my name out there. I figure my name is like John Smith. It is plain and boring. So I'd rather have a more jazzy company name. And I always had in the back of my mind, hey, if I sold it, somebody would be willing to buy it, because it wouldn't be called their name, It's like, but anyway, probably not be selling Fun Ideas Productions anytime soon, unless somebody wants to buy it. $1 billion. Come on.
Someone wanted to buy Cartoon Brews, so I think you're pretty.
That's true. Did somebody buy it?
Buy Cartoon Brews.
Did somebody buy it? Oh, okay. Did somebody actually buy it?
I don't know.
I mean, they offered it for sale. That doesn't mean somebody bought it. I could say Fun Ideas Productions up for sale. That doesn't mean I got a buyer or even anybody interested. Anyways.
Right. Now, what is your favorite episodes of this podcast?
Oh, geez. Not this one.
Well, of course not any of them with me, because that would just be absurd.
Actually, I like the second one with you and with what's his face.
Ben
I should.
Olsen.
Yeah, Ben. Thanks. Whoops, sorry, Ben. Because I liked it that we veered off and started talking about pizza and all sorts of weird stuff like that. I like that. I don't know. The episodes that I think are the best are the ones that I have a little anxiety about ahead of time, because I don't know if it's going to come off well. And it's usually I'm talking to somebody that I've never spoken with before. And so I'm like, oh my God, is this going to work? And then it comes out better than I expected. It's like, cool. Or like it's somebody that I always wanted to interview, like Dick DeBartolo. I interviewed him. I always wanted to interview him. And it's like, I just said out of the blue, I just called him up or emailed him or something. He said, sure. And it's like, oh my God, yeah. All right. So that's the ones I like the best.
What is now besides me? Now, actually, no. Let's say, how has your show improved since it went downhill when I started appearing on the show?
How's my show improved? I think I'm a little more comfortable with it. If you listen to the early ones, I don't think I was uncomfortable, but I know how to do the show now, and it took a while.
Since I've appeared, Mark, your show gets better.
I mean, people always marvel, and people who have been interviewed by me, they go, wow, that was more fun than I thought. And that's really the best compliment you can give me.
Fun ideas.
Yeah, well, that's usually the best compliment you can give me, is like, I don't want people to feel uncomfortable being on the show. It's not Uncomfortable Times podcast. It's, it's
Now, last question on this podcast.
Okay.
What is a guest you'd like to have on? And don't give me an answer that I'm expecting to get. Give me a good answer. So Paul McCartney doesn't count.
Okay, so you want a realistic answer?
Yeah.
It's like I'm trying to get some more of the Mad guys, so I'd like to get them. Who have I not been able to get? It seems like there's always somebody. In recent times,
there are a lot of people that I've been trying to get for you that won't respond to my email.
I shouldn't name names. I know situations better. It's frustrating because some guests I can't get due to circumstances beyond my control, and that frustrates me. I know that doesn't answer your question, but some of those I would like to get. Let's see. For Mad, I'd love to get John Ficarra, the old editor. Yeah. He's never done an interview with me, and I'd love to talk to him. Let's think about different subjects. Even though I've interviewed him before, it'd be nice to get Sid Jacobson one more time for Harvey, because he's in his 90s now, and it's
Charles Rosenet and me.
Yeah, both of you.
I want to do an interview of you with him. That would be funny.
You can. I mean, you whacked out probably.
That's the funny part.
Let's see. You're trying to sabotage my thing. It totally depends on the subject. I mean, it's like, and see, I don't know how these people would be. Like, I'd love to interview Larry Storch, for example, but I don't know how he'd be, because I've heard that since he's like 99 years old, he doesn't have much of a memory anymore. So it's like,
you should get Phil Roman.
Yeah, he'd be good. It's like,
he's really easy to reach. He's really nice.
Yeah.
He was just on a podcast the other day.
Okay. I've talked to him before. Oh, that was a good interview, and that wasn't even originally done for this podcast. But Bob Kurtz, he was a great interview. So it's like
Bob Singer would be a good one.
Oh yeah, okay. But and I'd love to talk to Art Leonardi again, but he's getting up there in years too. So who knows? But there's just a lot of people. It's like, yeah, the dream one would be like a McCartney or something like that, or somebody really big. I'm trying to think, what is the biggest one I've had on this show? It could be Dick DeBartolo. I don't know.
Jerry Beck.
Jerry Beck. Right. No.
Some people would think that, unfortunately.
Yeah.
Sorry,
Um,
Jerry, but
yeah. I mean, I thought getting some of the lampoon people was fun. It's like, and I'd like to get more of them. Because I got Sherry Flanagan, I got Stan Mack, I got BK Taylor. They were all fun because they were a little bit more challenging to try to get. So, that type of stuff is kind of what I like. But, I can't really say I want this person over this person because I'm kind of open to anybody. So,
how about that Australian guy?
Oh, Plastic? He's been
Yeah.
on. He's been on it before. You didn't ask me about return guests.
Oh, how did that work?
Which one?
I gotta be honest, did he do his Elvis accent there too?
What?
He
Say
did
that again.
Did he do his Elvis accent there too?
On that one, no, he didn't do any Elvis stuff. That's why it was so random on that episode. It's like, whatever.
I love it. Everyone's trying to keep a straight face, like, which now finally to the main discussion of our show.
Uh-oh.
People
Time's
Mark
up.
has met and people Mark has liked.
Okay.
Okay, so now let's start with basic. You met President Trump. I'm just kidding. Yeah, that was unexpected. No, you met. Yeah, I was gonna say something much worse like Putin, but I'm like, you know what, Trump's funnier. But now, monkeys. Let's talk about how you met each of the monkeys.
Okay, that's an interesting story. Okay. So the first time I saw any monkeys was in the concert in '87. But as far as meeting them, strangely enough, I met all four of them separately within a year's time. And
that's actually kind of cool.
Yeah. And it was the last the first one was Davy Jones, and it was 2 weeks before he died. And it was at the autograph show down in Hollywood. And I've said this before. It's like if somebody went around this room and said, we're taking bets on who will be dead by the end of February, I doubt Davy Jones would have even made the list, because Martin Landau was there and he was like 88 years old and he was pretty frail. And Carla Lemley, who is related to Universal's Lemley, was 105 and was there that day. Now they've both since passed, but they both outlived Davy Jones. And it's like Davy Jones was singing and playing, and I talked to him for a bit, and it was really cool and everything like that. The next one was Mickey Dolenz, who I actually met before. I met him way back in the 90s. But it was at the same Hollywood show, but the next one, and he did the same thing. He was like chit-chatting with everybody, playing and singing and da 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 da. So that's how I got to talk to him. And then there was this brief time around that time where both Peter Tork and, well, I think even Mickey, but Peter Tork and Michael Nesmith went on little solo tours. And so afterwards they had a little meet and greet. So I got to see both of them. And yeah, so I didn't talk to all four of them together in the same time, but I did talk to all four of them within a year. So there you go.
Now, you met both Chuck Jones and Friz Freleng.
Yeah, not at the same time again, but yeah.
No, but I do have to ask about meeting the monkeys, because within a year's time, after that last meeting the monkeys, did you just think to yourself, man, I've now met all the monkeys? Were you like, is it one of those moments where you're like stargaze?
Well, I was that way after seeing Nesmith, because it's like the other three had toured for years. Even if I didn't meet them, I mean, it's like Nesmith was always the wild card to ever meet or see or whatever, because he was never on tour or anything. So I was satisfied after seeing him, and I don't think I actually had met Torque separately even at that point, but I ended up doing it. So a little sense of satisfaction. Yeah.
Now, you met Chuck and Friz. I think you've talked about meeting Chuck Jones before, but
yeah, Chuck Jones is at the Warner Brothers store. He was wearing a cowboy hat. He's very soft spoken, so there really wasn't much I could say or do to him, but he was talking to people. But he was very kind of to himself. So I wasn't terribly impressed. I was much more impressed talking to Frizz. And Frizz was older too. So, he wasn't like Yosemite Sam, like everybody says, but he's very kind of blunt and matter of fact. But I liked him. I liked the guy. He's a little short guy, and he was just sitting there on a counter, and he was just talking to us in this art gallery. And he would just spout off different stories about Pink Panther and Tweety and Sylvester and, just stuff he worked on, and
Which gallery was it? I'm just curious.
it seems like, but this could be wrong. There was this art gallery called Circle Art Gallery in San Francisco, and I'm not
I know
sure if
what
it
you're
was
talking about.
that, but it could have been that. I know I met Bill Hanna at the Circle Art
I
Gallery
was about
because
to
that's
ask
where I
Bill
got my
Hannah
Yogi
next.
Bear. I have a Yogi Bear originally, so I have that, which is signed by Hanna and Barbera.
That's where I know the Circle Gallery from, because they did an interview with both of them at that gallery.
Yeah, but Joe Barbera was not there, so I never met him. Bill Hanna was there, and Bill
Which is
Hanna was
interesting,
just
because everyone says, when I ask people when I did an Hanna-Barbera series, I'm sorry I'm interrupting you right now. Um, but but when I interviewed people, for Hanna-Barbera, everyone says they met Joe. They talked to Joe much more than Hannah.
yeah. Well, Joe wasn't there. He was supposed to be there, but I think he fell ill that day or something. So it was just Bill. And I guess because the other one wasn't there, Bill was talking, he was pretty spry, I think he's already in his 80s, but still, he's just like, yeah, we did this and that and the other. I can't remember exactly what he said, and everyone's just throwing questions out,
I'm naming names randomly now from this. Now, one of the things interesting is you were at Francis Ford Coppola's house.
Yeah.
Explain yourself, sir.
My ex-wife used to work there when she was
Wait,
my
what?
wife. What? My
Hold
ex
on, hold on, backtrack. Your ex-wife worked at Francis Ford Coppola's house?
Not at his house, but for his company, American Zoetrope in San Francisco.
Oh,
I even worked for his company briefly.
I was about to say, wait, your ex-wife was like his maid or something, or what?
No. She was my wife at the time, and she worked at American Zoetrope in San Francisco at the office in the accounting department. I briefly worked there as the receptionist when I was between jobs. So I worked for Francis Ford Coppola too, but only for like a month. But Coppola always had this holiday party. He called it a harvest festival party, but I think I went to his place like 3 or 4 times maybe. But the harvest festival was just this get together party where he invited all the bigwigs and the people who worked for him and everything like that. Didn't really get into any sort of major conversation with him. I mean, this is the extent of my conversation with Francis Ford Coppola. We were standing in line for the food, and he says, "Is the food good?" And I go, "Yeah." So that's my encounter with Francis Ford Coppola. Hey, thank you very much.
Lucas was his house. Hello.
Now Lucas was there, and the memory I have about George Lucas is he adopted a bunch of kids. I don't know if you knew that.
No.
And I think he was a single father. He was married at the time of the original Star Wars, but he was divorced by the time I saw him. And for some reason, because I guess he's wealthy, he decided to adopt a bunch of kids. Well, my memory will always be of George Lucas chasing after one of his kids. It's like, come back here, because Coppola's lives on a winery type ranch, so it was a huge place, and up in Rutherford, California. And it's like you don't want your kid running off, and so but the kid just was like, he just darted away. And it was just funny watching George Lucas, who's usually Mr. I'm talking about Star Wars and everything is serious and blah blah blah, going, "Hey, come back here, you kid!" So.
Now you also met. Now let's talk about how you met Mort Saul.
Mort Saul was doing a public appearance in Sausalito, I believe, which is north of San Francisco, about 7 or 8 years ago. And he was pretty elderly. I mean, he died just a couple of years ago. He was already pretty elderly, but my friend Lee that I talked about earlier, he and I just decided to go up and see him because it's free. And he was just giving a little talk. He was talking about the current state of affairs, which at the time would have been like Obama and stuff like that. And hard to hear, but the things I could hear were pretty funny. So he still had it. He just couldn't speak very loudly. And unfortunately, they had horrible mic situations. So, but anyway, after it was all over, you could go up and just talk to him for a bit. And I did. So then I could hear him because he was standing right next to me. And I just on a whim brought one of his old albums because I had a few of them, and he signed it. So that was my,
Now,
yeah.
now you met one of the Stones. You
Met Ron Wood.
yeah.
And he did in the 80s, he did an art book because he's a painter. I don't know if you knew that.
Hold on 1 second. Can you
Okay.
hold on 1 second, Mark? I'm sorry.
All right.
This chair is squeaking like crazy.
Oh, okay. So Ron Wood is a painter too. I don't know if you knew this. And besides being a guitarist, so he put out a book called The Art of Ron Wood, which I still have. And he went around on a little book tour. I still have the book. He signed, and he put like a quickie profile drawing of himself. He has kind of a big nose, so it's like big nose, and just a little bit of hair. So I mean, it's all nose. So, but he was very cordial. Again, situation like the others, just chit chat. Everybody asked him questions. I don't remember what I asked, but it was just fun. And yeah.
And now, what about your friend Scott Shaw?
When did I meet him first, or?
Meet him first.
Again, it was San Diego. It was 1991. That's when I met Jerry Beck. I knew of Scott Shaw in the 70s. My first exposure to Scott Shaw knowingly was the Hanna-Barbera comics that Marvel published.
Yeah.
And then in the 80s, DC did the Captain Carrot stuff. I fell in love with that stuff. I was like, oh my God, I love this artist. And I didn't even know who Scott Shaw was, what he looked like or anything. I just said, I'm getting anything that this artist does. I love his work. And so when I went to San Diego Comic Convention, I knew he was going to be there. So I made sure to meet him. I told him that I basically idolized him. And he said, and Scott's kind of unassuming. He's like, really? There's so many other people to like. That's kind of like him, like Jack Kirby or something. He kind of talks like that, and it's like, Scott, I like your stuff, and Sergio's and that stuff. It's like, I mean, I do like Jack Kirby's stuff, but it's like, it's just like, if you had two doors, and one of them had Jack Kirby and one of them had Scott Shaw, and it's like you can only meet one of them, I would have gone to Scott Shaw's door. It's like,
now you would have probably gone to Kirby's door.
Well, I met Kirby anyway, so I don't know.
Yeah, I was going to talk about that next. Kirby.
Okay. Well, Kirby, I didn't really get to talk to him much because he's before he died, he was already popular. So he'd come out for signings in the early 90s. I was there. You might have seen these photos where he's dancing with his wife at the San Diego convention, like in 92 or 93 or something like that. The last year I think he was there was 93 or 94. I don't remember what year he died. And I just remember, oh, I should probably meet this guy, because he's not getting any younger. I had no idea he was going to die. I didn't get his autograph because he was charging some ungodly amount, probably like $10, but that was a lot back in the early 90s, when a lot of people weren't charging at all. And the reason why I was charging is because even then, pre-eBay, people were still selling, they get his autograph and then they turn around and put it up for sale somewhere. And
Evan Ear told that story one time.
Yeah, and so
and
I knew about that even before Evan Ear did that story. So it's like, so I just wanted to meet him, and I just told him kind of like, I appreciate your work and stuff like that. It wasn't a great conversation, but I can always say I met him. It's like, and I watched him sign other people's autographs, because I just kind of hung around, and so. But anyway.
Well, you got to have Evan Ear on your show, by the way.
I want Evan Ear on my show. He's an interesting person with me. I mean, he'll be on it eventually. It's just, timing.
Mark Evan Ear is, I had to get Mark for one of my, if I do that for June Foray project. Yeah. He's one of the hardest people to schedule something with ever.
That's right. That's exactly right. That's why I
'Cause
don't have.
kept
That's
telling,
why
I
I've
kept
never had him on
telling
there.
Amber,
I'm sure he's aware of this podcast. He's got to be. But it's like, Mark, if you're watching or listening to it, probably not this episode, but it's like, I'll have you on anytime. It's like we can schedule around your schedule. It's like, so
yeah,
anyway.
yeah. Mark, I said that I was telling Amber, I was trying to tell Amber, you have to get Evanier on your documentary. And she's like, it's impossible skeletal. I'm like, I know.
Yeah.
Like, I know it is. Keep trying.
Yeah.
And he's gonna tell, I'm like,
I
do
mean, he's not
exactly
impossible. I mean, he's been on Stu
not
Shostak's.
impossible.
He's been on Stu Shostak's show many times. He was interviewed for the Harvey documentary that Johnny Harvey did that may or may not come out. I wish Amber was working on the Harvey documentary. It would have been out 3 years ago. So it's,
Yeah. Yeah, I interviewed Mark for my thing too. So,
yeah.
And he gave me a 2.5-hour conversation. So
yeah. So
but,
it's not impossible. It's just, you just have to get
very
it's
busy.
like the stars have to align correctly. That's all.
He's Mr. Anecdote though. He's like one of those people that happen to be everywhere at the funniest time.
Yeah. Well, he's like for me, he's like the big brother that, has everything.
Yeah.
This is how he doesn't even know this story. So I'll tell you this story. So we met Jaffe at the CAPS meeting, Al Jaffe, when he turned the ripe old age of 90. And now he's 101. But anyway, I was really proud I was really proud to have this little nameplate that I put in his book that had his signature and autograph on it. I thought that was really neat. And then Evanier comes up to speak and give a little tribute, and he pulls out the original art for the first snappy answers to stupid questions. And I'm like, of course he would have this, It's like, I'm really happy to have It's a Mad, 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 Mad World vinyl album and the program and everything. Well, guess who has the original oil painting by Jack Davis? It's Mark Evanier. He has it on his wall, and it's like, of course he does. So he's like the older brother that has everything, and you're like sitting there like, he has.
But you still like him even more for it.
Yeah, well, I like it that he respects it all. It's like I would hate it. I would really get annoyed if he has like, I have this stuff. Who cares? It's like, because he said before on his website, if he, or his blog, I should say, if there was a fire in his house, I'm grabbing that, the Davis painting. So at least he has his priorities straight.
Now, Sergio Aragonis, good point.
First time I met him was in 1978. He was the first Mad person I ever met. I started reading Mad in 1974. And in San Jose, California, there's a bookstore called The Booksellers. And they just made an announcement. Mad artist Sergio Aragonis is going to show up. And I think my mom pointed it out. And then I said, oh, can we go? It's like, so we went and got his autograph. And I don't remember if I'm sure I talked to him a little bit. And the funny story about this is, so the kid that was right behind me, right in front of me, got his autograph, and his mom was standing behind him. I was behind her, and somebody from the local newspaper took a photo. I got cropped out of the photo, or I wasn't even in the photo. So the photo appeared in the newspaper, Sergio and this kid and his mother. Okay. So I was like, I was right there. Why didn't they put me in there? I was like 12 years old. So flash forward probably 25 years, maybe 30 years. So I'm talking to Sergio at another San Diego convention. This is probably about 10 years ago or something like that. And this kid, who's now not a kid, this person, I should say, and this really old lady come up to Sergio, and they said, we got a picture taken with you. And they pull out this exact clipping, and it's all yellowed and everything. And Sergio goes, oh, I remember that. And I mentioned it to these people. And I said, you know where I am at in that picture? And they go, no. And I go, I was right behind you in this picture. And they're all, no. And it's like, but the odds of us being at Sergio's table with that article, because I have a copy of it in my files, at the exact same time, is just like, that's totally bananas. It's like, because I've seen Sergio many times,
Yeah.
but to have the same people from way back when, and I asked him, have you seen Sergio since that time? And they go, no. I had seen him many times because he's always in San Diego and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So it's just weird. So that's my
Now,
weird Sergio story.
Stan Lee. You've met Stan Lee 3 times, you said.
Yeah.
Casually or just like, because I know he would get mobbed, but
The first time is my best story.
okay.
Because the last times were just like, stay true, true believer, and that's the end of that. you know how he was. So
I'm sorry, that was
and it got worse even after that. After that, when I didn't get his autograph, he'd just be like paraded around like he was like the queen or something like that. And it's like, oh geez, but when I first met him,
people would go up to him and he wouldn't even know he was signing their Batman comics signed by him, but people
yeah. So when I met up with him, it was in the early 90s, and San Diego Comic Convention used to not be so crazy. It used to be it was always busy when I went, but it was always, manageable. Now it's insane, it's like I don't even like going anymore. But at the time, you just walk around and there'd be like dead periods where just nothing was going on. And you just walk around and, you'd look at the comics and stuff like that. And I was walking along and there's like these drapes and by this one booth, and I just poked my head in the drapes because it's like, what's this doing here? And I opened it up and there's Stan Lee. And he's in there and he has like a briefcase and he's like putting some papers away. And so I said, nobody else is around. I'm going to talk to him. So I went up and talked to him. And we talked for about a half hour. I don't remember everything we said, but I did tell him I was publishing a fanzine. And, even if he was totally full of shit, the thing that I liked about Stan Lee is that he was very positive about a lot of things. He says, good luck with that fanzine. I hope it goes places, that type of thing. That sticks with you when you're like, trying to get started and stuff like that, and he had that kind of bombastic thing. And we were talking, I don't remember everything we were talking about. I wish I had a tape recorder, but it's like I wasn't even thinking about that. We were just chit-chatting about a lot of different things. And then finally, after about a half hour, this handler person comes up, oh, Mr. Lee, you're needed to be somewhere else. I don't know where they said. And he goes, okay, I gotta go, but it was great talking to you, buddy, and then he leaves. And I go, wow. And I've told people this story and they, if they're like you, they're like, well, he was always mobbed. You could never do that. It's like, well, I was then. I was able to do it then. It's like you couldn't later on. Yeah. But that was my
later on, he probably had bodyguards.
Yeah. But back then he was all by himself. I mean, granted, he was behind a drape, but I just happened to poke my head.
He was younger.
Yeah. But he was probably in his 70s then, I think. Yeah. Anyway.
Jack Davis.
That one was only a phone conversation. Hate to spoil it for you, but it was for the Cracked book. My friend Lee, again, I'm mentioning him a lot. He has 2 original art pieces of himself that he got commissioned. I don't know if he paid for them or if he got them for free. I don't remember, but it's still impressive regardless. But when I was doing the Cracked book, I knew Davis did some stuff for Cracked. And I figured, well, this is my opportunity to talk to him. So I got his phone number somehow, probably through friends who knew him or something like that. And I talked to him on the phone, probably just about 15 minutes, because he was an older man at that point and he didn't want to talk forever. He didn't have much to say about Cracked, except he said that, he had that Southern drawl. And he goes, yeah, Cracked, it didn't pay very good. But I had to do it, because I didn't have any more work, and, it's like, I thought, oh, that's pretty cool. And that ended up in the Cracked books, what he said about Cracked. We probably chit-chatted about a couple other things, and that was essentially my conversation with him, but at least I got to talk to him once,
I'm curious to know your interaction with this person, because I know a lot of people's interactions with her was not pleasant. She was kind of personal. Mary Tyler Moore.
Mary Tyler Moore was friendly when I saw her. She was doing a this again was thing with my friend Dane. It was a celebrity function for health and wellness or something like that.
Oh,
And so a lot of times when you can get to meet a celebrity outside their normal thing, they kind of act differently, which is kind of a good thing. So, I mean, if somebody says, "Oh, I met Mary Tyler Moore and she was really cranky and irritable," or whatever, it might have been because it was something about TV or movies or something, and she just was like, you know. But this was about health, and she was talking about her diabetes, and so we were all asking her questions about that, and
no.
so, you know, on that level, I mean, she was pretty serious. She wasn't, you know, joking around and doing Mr. Grant, you know, but she did talk a little bit about Mary Tyler Moore's show and stuff like that. So, you know, she did open up a little bit, but, you know, I found her pleasant, you know, just kind of quiet and, you know, just matter of fact. But, you know, I didn't think she was a jerk or a bitch or whatever you want to say. You know, I thought she was pretty nice, you know. And
Here's a random name,
okay.
Tiger Woods.
Tiger Woods. Again, with my friend Dane, we used to go to different golf tournaments. We used to go to the Bob Hope one. You see Bob Hope on my list. That's when I met
Hope was
him.
the first one on my list. He was the
Yeah,
next person I was going to ask
yeah.
about.
Okay, I'll weave into that. Pebble Beach is where I met a lot of people. Met Tiger Woods. Met shoot. I can't. Sing is the last. I can't think of all my golf stars. You know, I'm not a big golf fan, to be honest. I'm more of a
Not
celebrity fan.
either. I
Yeah,
told
I'm more of a
Jeffrey not
celebrity
to.
fan. So if I'm making up names or forgetting names, but I mean that's where I met Bill Murray. That's where I met Huey Lewis, Jack Lemmon, George Lopez. All these people were there, and you know they had their little times because they did the Celebrity Pro-Am where they did their golf for charity, and you know they would do their game, but in between there was certain times where you could actually just go up and just interview them, chit chat and stuff like that. And that was usually before they did their game and directly after. And sometimes if there was like a party at, you know, and that's where I met Tommy Smothers and stuff like that. Met Clint Eastwood. He was pretty quiet and to himself, so I didn't really talk to him. But you know, Tiger Woods, pretty straightforward, pretty serious. But you know, he was talking about his game, and you know, he thought he was going to win. He did. So you know, Bob Hope was at his own tournament down in Southern California. I forgot what year that was. Obviously, it was before he died. But he was pretty dang old. He was probably like 94, 95. And the conversation I always remember is the one I overheard more than the one I had, because he was just kind of out of it, sad to say. But he was putting balls on the green for photographers, and they basically had to kind of stand him up. It wasn't like he was going to fall over, but you know, he didn't walk very well. So, you know, they had to prop him up, and then he was standing there with the golf club and everything. And then at one point, one of his handlers is standing by him, and Bob goes, "Where am I?" And the handler says, "Bob, you're on your own golf course on your during your own golf tournament." And he goes, "Oh, I love that." And I thought that was the funniest thing. And you know, we got his autograph, or I think Dane did, because he was not signing very well, but Dane insisted, so I just watched him sign Dane's autograph on a photo that Dane had been with Bob Hope previously a couple years earlier, and so he brought the photo of them together and he wanted him to sign it. So I watched him sign, and he signed like, you know, it took him forever.
Yeah.
And you know, it was just, that's why I didn't get his autograph. I just said, I don't want to push this guy. You know, it's like anyway. Are you freezing up? What's happening? Okay, there we go.
Yeah, you were freezing up.
You were freezing up, not me. Anyway, go ahead.
Now, next on this list is let's see, Dan DeCarlo. I was gonna ask about that.
Oh, Dan DeCarlo appeared with
Hello?
yeah, I hear you. Yeah, you're still
You're
there.
freezing up, sorry.
Oh, okay. I can hear you fine. Dan DeCarlo appeared with what's the writer? I can't even think of the writer, and I put his name down. The Archie writer. They also wrote for Cracked. Anyway, are you freezing up again? Anyway,
Mark,
they appeared.
you're frozen again.
What? Well, just keep going. It's recording, so don't worry, it's recording. Anyway, they appeared at one convention. It was in San Diego, and they gave a talk, and we got to talk to them and interview with them. Do you want to end this if you're frozen up, or what? Hello? Hello? Hello?
Oh,
Oh, now you came back. That was weird. Okay. I was just sitting here waiting for you to come back. I was going to text you. Okay. So I'll say my story again in case it got cut out, and then I'll cut this.
you froze and I didn't hear what you said.
You couldn't hear me? Okay. Well, I could hear me. Okay. So Dan DiCarlo and George Glatter appeared together at one of these conventions. It was in San Jose, I think, or in the Bay Area. I can't remember exactly where, but they gave a speech, and then it was a Q&A, and then you could go up and just talk to him, meet him. I got a piece of original artwork from Dan and talked to him for a bit. And I think my friend Greg recorded it. So he was there. I wasn't his friend then, which is kind of funny. So he has the recording of the conversation and everything, including my questions and stuff. So it exists somewhere, an old interview with me and Dan DiCarlo.
Now Alice Cooper. I wanted to ask about Alice Cooper because I have a great Alice Cooper story.
Okay.
About me.
Well, my Alice Cooper story again is the golf course, and there's nothing much to say about it except that Dane and I started chit-chatting with Alice Cooper to the point where he was ready to come with us. We were going to go somewhere, and he wanted to come along with us. And again, his situation like with Stan Lee, handlers, so he's like, he says, "Oh, that sounds great. I want to come with you, blah, 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 blah." And then one of his handlers come, "Alice, you have to go to such and such at 3:00. You can't be doing this." "Oh, I forgot. Sorry guys, I can't go with you." It's like, but that's what the funny story was. I mean, he was like our best buddy, and that's why it was so funny. Anyway, so he was like one of the friendliest celebrities ever met, so that's
I have a funny Alice Cooper story, but not involving Alice Cooper.
Okay.
My dad went to Hawaii for his 50th birthday.
Mm-hmm.
And when I was younger, I had this habit of telling people they looked like somebody. It was like really weird. Okay. So I just told the guy who ran the restaurant, who happened to be waiting our table, he looked like Freeberg.
Stan Freberg?
Yeah. Looking back.
Old Freberg or young Freberg? What, the big bushy white hair? Freberg?
I think older Freberg.
Okay, old Freberg. Okay.
But looking back, this guy looks nothing like Freberg.
Okay.
It's just me being me at my weird moment. Okay. But because I'm like, it's like, Stan Freberg, he's like, "I used to work at Columbia Records. The guy who ran the record store was Frank Zappa's tour manager. He worked with Alice Cooper. He was Alice Cooper's band leader, and he was Alice Cooper's agent and band manager."
Was it Herb Cohen?
No.
Oh, okay.
He just happened to be running this restaurant in Hawaii, retired. And my parents didn't know where I was. I walked with this guy to the bar, and I'm like, 13, 14. And I'm just talking to this guy about radio stars he met. Like, he met Jack Benny. He was with Mel Blanc. He was with whatever. And my parents were like, "Where are you?" And you kind of like, "You're talking to some strange dude at the bar right now."
Hey.
And they had no idea who this guy was. And I'm like, "I don't know." He knew Freberg. He's like, all right, cool. Well, yeah, he gave me a T-shirt at the restaurant. He paid for our food, everything.
I wish you knew his name. If you figure out his name, let me know, because but yeah, I know Herb Cohen was Frank Zappa's manager for a time, but then he dismissed him
But
somewhere along the line, and I don't
no,
know.
no,
Yeah,
it's some other guy.
yeah, I'm sure it's somebody other guy, but he's related to the
I
Turtles.
I made
Yeah.
mistaken tour manager because I think this, but I think he
Okay.
was worked with a tour.
Okay.
He worked with
Okay.
Frank Zappa, Alice Cooper, Stan Freberg. He worked at Columbia Records while Freberg was doing records.
It was Mitch Miller. Well, no, Freeburg was a Capitol.
Capitol, yeah, you looked at Columbia and he meant Freberg. Columbia or
Got it.
he looked
Okay.
at Capitol too.
All right. All right. Got it.
You
Okay.
looked at you looked at Capitol too. I don't remember anymore. I was 13. I don't know. I was
Well.
more interested in hearing what he had to say about Jack Benny. I don't know. But I don't know. He liked me. He gave, like, we had like a part people, like 8 people there, and he gave everyone's food for free.
Cool. That's the best
So,
part.
hey guys, I just got y'all's meal for free. Dessert's on us, folks. Yeah, I'm celebrating his 50th
He's
birthday.
all right. Talk to more strangers at the bar. Come on.
Yeah, go ahead. Yeah, who does this guy look like, Kamden?
Yeah, exactly.
Now, next up, let's see here. I'm just gonna name a few more names so we can get to the last part of this interview.
Okay.
Let's see here. You were next to Ringo and Yoko at one point.
Not at the same time. 2 different times.
Oh yeah, that would be weird.
Yeah.
That would be really awkward.
Well, I mean, it could have happened. It's not impossible, but it's like it's highly unlikely. No, it's Ringo. Ringo always has his all-star band tour and stuff, and typically he plays at a pretty large venue. Well, where I grew up in Saratoga, there's this area or this mansion called Montalvo, and it's actually within walking distance of my dad's house. And you can actually sneak into concerts, or at least you could back in those days. This is probably about 10 years ago. And if you can't, I'm not going to get in trouble. It's like, anyway, because I don't even live there anymore. But anyway, so, but I used to sneak into concerts every so often because, hey, why not? So what you did is you waited until it got dark and everybody's seated, and then invariably all the shows weren't sold out because they charged a lot for tickets at those concerts. And so anyway, actually I was with my friend Dane again, and I told him, let's sneak into the Ringo concert because this is going to be the closest Ringo is to my house, as my dad's house. But I mean, it's like, imagine, I don't know, well, you said Tim Hollis is in town. How close is he to you?
About 2 hours.
Oh, he's not that close. Okay. Imagine somebody's like in
an
town.
hour. Actually, maybe like 30 minutes.
Okay, so never mind. Okay, I thought he was closer than that. But anybody within walking distance from your place. Imagine if some big celebrity you've always wanted to meet was in walking distance from your house.
Bob Newhart.
Okay. And but it charged you like $500 a ticket, but you somehow could sneak in. Well, that's what I did. I said, damned if I'm gonna let Ringo be the closest he is to my living room. He's less than a mile away from my dad's house. I got to get to this concert, even though I'd seen Ringo before. And I wasn't really trying to meet him or anything, but we watched the concert. Everything was fine. And at the end, and this always irks me to this day, and it's like I hate reliving this part of the story. So we were walking, and the thing about the Montalvo thing, it's not like high security, because I figure all these people are wealthy people. They're not going to be like mobbing Ringo. They're wealthy, respectable citizens. They're not going to do that stuff. So I was just walking kind of towards the tour buses, and I figured, hey, maybe I can meet him. Maybe I could actually even get on the bus. Who knows? And so we're just kind of hanging out there by the tour buses, and lo and behold, the other band members come out, and then here comes Ringo. And Ringo's this little guy, he's shorter than me. It's amazing. He doesn't get lost. He's a short little guy. He's very slim too. It's like, so, he's like about 3 or 4 feet from me, and I was just about to walk after him, when a friend of Dane's, and I just want to kill her. It just kind of said, Dane, how you doing? And it just like ruined the whole momentum, because now we had to stop and talk to his stupid friend. It was somebody I didn't even know that well.
Oh, that's even more annoying.
And it's like, I'm watching him walk away, and I should have just said, bye, Dane, and just walked. But I was sticking with Dane, and we had to chit chat with this other person, and and then by the time she shut up and left, Ringo was long gone, and it's like, but at least I was like a few feet away from him, so I got to see him pretty up close. That's my Ringo story,
And your Yoko story?
My Yoko story, they did, this is in San Francisco, and they were doing a musical on the life of John Lennon. And strangely enough, Yoko was in the audience. And this is the sad part about this thing, but I still have the program.
Another sad story?
Well, it's sad in a different way. It's a sad story that I got all the autographs from all the actors who were in this performance. It was like a musical in the life of John Lennon. The reviews of it, I thought it wasn't too bad, but the reviews of it were terrible. And if it had been a success, it would have gone on Broadway and it would have been a big deal. But the initial reviews were saying it was kind of lame, kind of stupid, kind of blah, blah. And so it never went anywhere. And I think that was the only performance. But that's not negative for me. That's negative for Yoko, because, she really wanted it to work. And, but she was there. And I wasn't trying to meet her either. It was like, so, because afterwards it was a meet and greet with the actors, and the actors weren't anybody really famous. I don't think they are. I mean, they might be now. I'd have to look at the program again. They've gone on to better things. But there just was this one moment where she got up, and I didn't even know she was there. And she was probably like 3 or 4 feet in front of me, but she had these like 2 big bodyguards next to her. So I wasn't really going to lunge forward. Hey, Yoko, how's it done? So because she's like Ringo, tiny person, really small. You don't think about these people being so small because, you only see them on the movies and stuff like that. So that's my close encounters with Ringo and with Yoko. But, I never actually talked to him, but it wasn't like I was, I saw Yoko in performance like a couple years later, because a friend of mine actually wanted to go, and she wasn't actually that bad considering most people hate her, but hey, that's them, not me. Anyway.
Now, Al Jaffe, we talked about him earlier.
Yeah. Al Jaffe appeared at the Caps dinner. Caps is cartoon artist professional society down in LA, and Evanier goes there all the time, and Sergio goes there. They wanted to do a party for Al Jaffe's 90th birthday. Southern California is kind of a bit of a trek for me. It's more of a trek now, but I wanted to make the effort for that. And so I took time off of work and went down, because I'd never met Jaffe before. I figured at 90, he's not getting any younger, but he's still with us as of this recording. So, hey, great. He's 101. But I always liked Jaffe's work, so I always wanted to meet him and everything. So, I got to talk to him for a bit. I don't know everything I said. The only thing I remember he said is I asked him if he could do me a little sketch or something, and he said, I don't do sketches in public anymore because my hand's a little too shaky nowadays to do that. I have to take my time with it and do it at home. Like when I got his autograph, it was pre-done on a little nameplate that I stuck in the book. But I still got his autograph. I just didn't watch him do it, but I know it's his. So
Will Eisner.
Eisner was that same year I saw Scott Shaw and Jerry Beck. It was just the first year. I just went up to people and I say, Will Eisner, I love your work. I got his autograph. Don't remember what I talked about, but I saw him a few times after that. But and that was when I saw Ray Harryhausen. That's when I saw Forrest J. Ackerman. It was not.
Those all 3 of those are next to each other. I guess that's why.
Yeah, it's not when I saw Ray Bradbury. Ray Bradbury is a funny story in a different way.
I'd like you to tell that story if you're offering.
Okay, Ray Bradbury. This is a later years San Diego when he was getting pretty elderly. Unfortunately, he was in a wheelchair by this point. And I was working in San Diego for Lee again. I keep mentioning people that, I and Lee would give me time off to go shop, but I couldn't take advantage of that too much. He says, don't be gone longer than say 30 minutes or something. I need you here, so I'd go off, and because he'd let me go, I figure 30 minutes, I'm going to go as far as I could possibly go and then work my way back. So I went all the way to the other end of the convention, and the San Diego convention is huge, and there's mobs of people. And it was about 20, I was gone for about 20 minutes, and I'm going, oh crap, I gotta get back. And it's gonna take me at least 10 minutes to get back. This isn't gonna work. He's gonna be pissed. Just then, when I was at the other end of the building, who should be wheeled in but Ray Bradbury? And so I just said hi to him, and he said, hi, and I noticed he said, I need to go to such and such. I don't even remember where he said, but I noticed it's like, since he was in a wheelchair and since it was Ray Bradbury, he had a few people behind, pushing him and stuff like that. A couple of people it was like Moses in 10 Commandments. It was like the seas were parting, and I go, hey, I can get back to Lee pretty quickly if I follow Ray. So I did. And where Ray wanted to go, ironically, was right around where Lee's thing was. So I just followed Ray in his wheelchair all the way back, and I got there in less than 10 minutes because there was no people. It was just everybody parted ways, and it was just whoop. So that was my great Ray Bradbury story.
I don't know if you know about this, but Bradbury as well as Bob Clampett were the first, what I consider the first two people who actually collect animation art. Because Ray Bradbury had one of the largest collections of animation art for a while.
That's probably correct. I don't know for sure.
Excuse me. And so did Clampett.
Yeah.
Because Clampett's a fanboy too.
Yeah.
They were the
because I don't know if Forrest J. Ackerman collected too, because he collected everything. I know he had animation art from live action movies like Forbidden Planet that right. Disney actually did the animated effects. He did have cells of that, so I don't know if that counts, but he did have stuff
yeah, but like Bradbury, if you go to like Bradbury's auctions, if you see it, he had like Fantasia art, then he'd have Pink Panther art, and then he'd have he wasn't a big Hanna-Barbera fan, I know. But Bradbury would have like Warner Brothers cells from like What's Opera Doc or something. And like he interviewed Chuck Jones. If you've seen that interview, he interviewed Chuck Jones, and it's in the book. The book Chuck Jones Conversations.
Oh yeah.
If you have that book, he is in there. And I thought, this guy definitely collects.
Yeah. So
because he's asking like about individual cells and all that. It's
so
really good.
You're probably correct. I mean, but you knew those three, Bradbury, Harryhausen, and Ackerman. They were best buds. They had gone to like the World Science Fiction Convention back in the 30s together or something, so they were all big fanboys.
And then Clampett was also the other one, because Clampett, I know Ruth Clampett told me that Clampett has Disney art. They have Disney art that he would just dig out of trash cans when he was a kid.
I believe.
And even when he was like working at Warner Brothers, he was still digging things out the garbage. To the point where the Disney archives asked him for some of this art, and he just said no. Like the Disney says, we don't have this Mickey Mouse poster. They still don't have the poster. Which I wanted her to show the picture, but she couldn't easily get to it to take a picture of it for me, because I'm like, I want to see this, right? But he said no. That's why he just basically said no. They offered him like a lot of money for it though too.
Yeah.
Now, last two names, and we're gonna get to this last part, and we're gonna be done.
Okay.
Last few names.
Okay. Last few names.
Actually, Jonathan Winters.
Jonathan Winters is another interview with Dane. I didn't get a chance to talk to him, but I did write the questions again. So he asked some really good questions that the thing that really sucks sometimes when you're running camera is the person's right in front of you that you've always wanted to meet, but you can't just set down the camera and go, hey, how's it going? It's like, so basically he's right in front of me and I'm interviewing him. I mean, Dane's interviewing him, asking him the questions I wrote at least. But you know, I'm watching him through the lens instead of live. You know, I did see him without the camera up and stuff like that. He was pretty elderly too. And so he wasn't really that animated, you know, it's like, but at least I got to see him because I always liked him as a kid. So
All right.
not a great story, but that's true.
All right. I got 3 names and we're done because I've already
Okay.
put away the sheet.
Okay.
All right. 4. Schultz.
Schultz was a weird situation because a lot of people haven't met him. It's kind of weird because I thought everybody did. But what I found, I was in college at San Francisco State, and there was this friend named Lisa who found out that he was going to make an appearance at the DeYoung Museum in San Francisco. And I was like, you're kidding. And it was free. And you had to get a ticket, but you know, and it's like, shit. And it's like, I thought this thing would be mobbed because it's Charles Schultz. You know, this is like early 90s, you know, and it was, you know, attended, but it wasn't like over attended. It was like a kind of a shock. And so, you know, he came out and he gave a little talk. And, you know, I remember one point when some kid asked him and he says, can I come up and get an autograph from you on my poster or something like that? And Schultz says all deadpan, he goes, no, because the floor around me is all electrified. Like, oh my God, you know, and I think the kid was like, oh shit, you know. I thought it was like the funniest thing because it's so dark. It's like, that's like something that wouldn't have been in Peanuts, you know. It's like that the floor was electrified around where he's sitting. And then at the end he says, all right, you know, now that I've done talking, you can all come up and bring your stuff. And so I went up there, and my only regret is I should have brought something current, because what I brought instead, for some reason, I felt like, oh, I should get the oldest Peanuts thing I have. So I had a hardback copy of More Peanuts, the second Peanuts book ever from 1954, and he signed it. But he gave me this funny look because he doesn't like that era, or he didn't like that era of Peanuts, but he signed it anyway. And I should have brought like a current book, so he would have signed that too, but I didn't. So I saved the ticket in there. So if anybody asks, is like, when did you get that? Or did you buy that? You know, like, oh, no, there's the ticket. That's when I saw him. So, you know, and I probably asked him a couple questions. I don't even remember what I said, but, you know, at least I met him. And then you flash forward a few years later in San Diego, and at the Charles M. Schultz Museum is in San Diego.
Yeah, I've been there.
I'm standing in line to see Jeannie Schultz, his widow, who I met a few times, in line with me. In front of me was Robert Schimmel. Behind me, Steve Geppi. And so I'm talking to Robert Schimmel, and he, you know, and Steve Geppi, and neither of them had ever met Charles Schultz, which floored me because I thought for sure Geppi would have met him because he's Mr. Comic Book Diamond Distribution and everything. He would have met everybody. Nope, didn't meet him. Schimmel was Triumph the dog, and I asked him, it's like, where's Triumph? And he goes, oh, I didn't bring him. I said, you didn't bring him to San Diego? And he goes, no, I didn't think it would be appropriate. I go, this is like the most appropriate place. He actually didn't bring the Triumph dog puppet. You know, I was shocked. But anyway, we chit-chatted for stuff like that. And I told them the story I just told you about Schultz, and they were like in awe that I had met the man.
Yeah.
And, you know, they had never
They
got
were
to
like
meet.
me right now.
Yeah. So there you go.
Now, last 2 names, Al Feldstein.
Feldstein, yeah.
Feldstein.
He was at another convention in Northern California, and it was kind of funny. Feldstein's kind of an interesting person because he's not really revered, yet he edited Mad almost as long as John Ficarra. Ficarra beat him by a couple years. He basically saved Mad, and he actually wrote the majority of the horror books for EC, the Tales from the Crypt and everything. So, you know, he should be known for Mad and Tales from the Crypt. And it's like most people don't even know his name. I adored the man, you know. It's like I knew he was gruff. a lot of mad people don't have favorable things to say about him, and maybe as an editor, he was probably a jerk. But when I met him, the thing that kind of surprised me is he was like surprised that anybody was interested in this stuff, because, and I said, yeah. And, but I think what turned him around is I told him I saw him on a old Mike Douglas show in 1978, which I'd love to get a better copy of because it's on an old beta tape.
A lot of the Mike Douglas, a lot of Mike Douglas shows, like I know the one with Chuck Jones and the one with Charles Schultz.
This one's not. I know the exact air date. It's in like 1977. It's for Mad's 25th anniversary, and Al Feldstein came on. Ben Vereen was the guest host that week, and they just show a few clips of Mad. I'd just love to have a nice.
And it's not on YouTube.
I'd love to have it on YouTube, but I have it on a beta tape somewhere. But it's like I don't have a good player and stuff to upload that stuff. So I don't know.
And Steranko
is again with Lee. Lee, I met him once at a convention. You just do. And I guess I got a signature. Talked to him a little bit about Harvey because that's actually where you guys start, not Marvel. And anyway, I got his autograph and blah, blah, blah. Flash forward a couple of years. I mean, it's like 6 or 7 years ago now, I guess. Lee calls me up and he goes, "Hey, do you want to have dinner with my wife and with Steranko?" And I go, "Shit, yeah." So we all had dinner together at a nice restaurant. He told me to dress up, so I dressed nicely, and we just had a nice lengthy dinner. The food was pretty good, and the thing I remember mostly, even though we talked about every subject under the sun, is at the end, Steranko was like, "It was really nice to have dinner with you and everything," and he grabs my hand, and he's already like 70 years old, and I mean, the grip this guy had, I mean, it was like, oh, wow, shit. It's like, so he's in shape, he probably still is. He's in his 80s now, but, it's like, anyway, so that's what I remember.
Final name, Sid Jacobson.
Sid Jacobson, I met him at the Harvey offices in LA, and I had been trying to meet him for years. It was like at San Diego, he'd always invariably show up when I wasn't there, or he'd cancel out, and so he wasn't there at all. So I always wanted to meet him because he was editing the books at that time, and finally met him at the Harvey offices, and we sat down and we had a meeting one afternoon sometime in the early 90s. I don't remember. And I got his autograph and everything. I didn't record anything, but I did interview him later. That I did put an interview in Harveyville Fun Times. The only thing he was kind of pissed off about at the time was, at the time I was tending to side more with the Harvey family and the origin of Richie Rich. And he was telling me his side of the story. My personal opinion about the origins of Richie Rich is that it's not just one person who just said, "I have a great idea. I'm going to come up with a rich kid, Richie Rich."
That's funny. That's a good example of that.
Yeah, it's more like everybody had their little bit they put in, so it's like Bugs Bunny, it's like there's not one person, "I created Bugs Bunny," and so
or Mr. Magoo.
But I don't know if it is like Bugs Bunny in this way, but the people that say that they created Richie Rich resent the other people who said they created Richie Rich, even if I think it's a group effort. They don't like to share the credits. So, I don't know if the Looney Tunes people were that way, but
with a lot of characters like that.
Yeah.
Do you have Charlie Thorsen's? I'm sorry to interrupt you right now.
That's okay.
Do you have Charlie Thorsen's book?
Which one's that one? I probably do.
The cartoon Charlie. Thorsen was a Canadian artist. He designed the early Bugs Bunny. Hold on.
I don't know if I have it. I might have seen it before, though. I don't have every book.
This one right here.
I've seen that before, but I do not have it. Okay.
Yeah, it's kind of really a lot of weird stories in it. One of them was like, apparently, I don't buy this story. I actually don't believe this story. It seems really far-fetched.
I invented Bugs Bunny.
But Thorsen designed Droopy while he was at Disney doing Tortoise and the Hare, and he let Avery use the design later at MGM. When, by the way, he had left MGM by the time Avery got there. It's a really far-fetched idea.
No, I don't. It's like that website that we have on Facebook, the fake art you find from eBay and stuff like
Yeah.
that. Yeah.
I'm in love
Oh,
with
how do you
Andy
pronounce
Warhol.
that guy's name? Do you know his name?
I have no idea how to pronounce his
Is it
name either.
Toe Frug or something? Is there two
I don't
Frug?
know. I've been pronouncing it my name Tofrug, but I don't
Okay,
know.
you don't know either. Okay, because
I've
I
never
always
met
want to
the
say
guy.
this.
I never met the guy except for casually exchanging Andy Warhol fakes
I
with
mean,
him.
I'm going to say it now. So if you pass it along, you can tell them this. So, there used to be a dance called the Frug. I don't know how to dance that way, but I always think to Frug or not to Frug, I don't know, but, I don't know how to pronounce his name. It probably is Toe or something or anyway. Anyway.
Yeah. Now, last part of this podcast and we're done.
Okay.
We're going to talk about the books you're going to write. You're going to have published.
I'm not writing any more books. No, go ahead. Okay, go ahead.
No, I mean like the books. Now I'm also opening this up because I've forgotten some of them besides.
Are you talking about the ones that I've
We talked about the origin of the Pac-Man one last
Are
time.
you talking about the ones I've written that aren't published yet?
Yes.
Too?
We
Okay.
talked about the origin of Pac-Man last time, so we're not going to go into that.
Okay, so the Pac-Man book comes out next. If we talked about that last time, then that one comes out next.
We talked about that extensively last time.
Okay. The next one is the Stars of Walt Disney Productions. That one is at the level that it's been edited, but I haven't got a final proof back. Like the Pac-Man book's past that. It's the next step for it is I should be getting a copy in my hot little hands. So that's where that one is.
I know a lot of books are on delay. Like I think
but
Steve
the Disney one is edited, but yeah, I haven't got a proof back. So until I get a proof,
yeah,
it's kind of in limbo.
I know a lot of books are in limbo at Bear Manor, right? Because Steve Cox's Flintstones book is still in limbo, and it's been in limbo since the pandemic.
Yeah, and the Total Television Scrapbook, that one was on hold for a long period, so that one finally did come out. I think what they're doing, because I know Bear Manor well, they don't want to put all my books out at once, and I even told them that I don't want to put them all at once. So if it takes till the end of the year or even the beginning of the next year for the Pac-Man book to come out, well, then so be it. I'm not trying to sit there and say it's the 40th anniversary, it better come out this year. It's like whatever, just as long as they come out, and they're supposed to come out. So those two are definitely going to come out. The Warren Kremer book is done, except the family needs to do their final sign off, and I fear that they're rewriting it, which is going to delay it, but we'll see what they're going to do. But they've taken forever to do that one. What?
Now we're going to talk about your Mad book, because I want to know
the Mad book.
You got to tell me why you wrote a book on Mad. We got to start, because this one I'm actually interested in buying.
Okay. Well, the two books I'm working on right now are the Mad book and the Turtles book. I'm not starting any other books.
Okay, let's do the Turtles
until
book
these are done. Okay,
let's do the Turtles book first, so we can save best for last.
Okay, so the Turtles book, the only thing that's holding up the Turtles book is we keep getting interviews, and as long as we keep getting interviews, like we got Howard Kalin, who's like the lead singer, so that was an important interview to get. So now we have that one in there, and then I got this guy that played the drums recently, and so that's transcribed. So currently everything's transcribed, but we're still getting quality interviews. As Charles and I are working on it, and I tell Charles, I said, as long as we're getting quality interviews, meaning actual band members, actual producers, not friends, not hearsay people, not just oh yeah, I kind of liked the Turtles when I was growing up. No, I mean actual people that were involved. I'm okay with it. So he agrees, because we're getting a lot of interviews, but there's some interviews early on that were kind of like, can we stop putting these interviews with these people that barely know these guys? It's like, so that's the Turtles book. So we have a lot of photos. And once we decide that's it, that's all the interviews we're going to do, then that will be turned in. It will not be Bear Manor. We're working with a different publisher on this one, because Bear Manor tends to not publish music books. So that's why.
I was going to ask, I'm going to ask a question first. So I actually wrote an op-ed one time I called it the Justice for the Cameraman. Mm-hmm. It was this op-ed about, it began with the idea of attention all podcasters. This was true fact. And it was just this op-ed that basically said, you people, all of you folks, all of the people who think that they love media so much, like people who have a Star Wars podcast,
Yeah.
well, they don't want to have, they love Star Wars so much that they would rather have some fan talking about Star Wars than, a camera guy who's never been interviewed talk about Star Wars. And I was kind of curious, like, do you always go after like the big names first, or do you sometimes go after like, what did this camera guy do here, or what did someone do here?
Oh,
Because
you mean
I found it
on my
very
book,
hard.
on any of my books, you mean?
Yeah.
Well, I mean, I have, whenever I write a book, and we'll use the Mad Book. Let's just go into it. Okay, so in the Mad Book, obviously there's some people I can't interview. Gaines is dead, Feldstein's dead, Kurtzman's dead. I can't interview them. But there's good quality interviews that have come out in the past from Comics Journal and other publications. So I can use interviews, as long as I get proper credit, to flesh out that story. So of living people, and then I've done my own interviews of some people that have passed, like I can use anything I've done in the past with Davis or whatever, because I've already interviewed him. But
Right.
so when I set out to do a book like the Mad Book, first of all, I didn't want to do it because I thought it would be too big of a project, and it has been, but it's been fun. But
is it going to be an art book too? A lot of art?
No, it's going to
So
be
it's
a
gonna be
lot.
like a cracked book.
It's going to be more like the Crack Book. There'll be some images, but it's a lot more text, and it might be too.
That's what got you a bad review from that one guy.
Yeah, well, it's not going to have an index in the back because Doug Guilford has taken care of that online, so I don't need to do one. And I interviewed Doug Guilford too for the podcast. Okay, so whenever I start a book, I always kind of, in my mind, or I jot them down, there's always people I know I can get right away, because I just know them already. Like Tom Richmond, I interviewed before when I did the Crack Book. I knew I could interview him again. But there's always like a few, and there's other low-hanging fruit that I figure I can get. No offense, Kit, but I got Kit Lively because, hey, I just know him on Facebook. Hey, you wrote for Mad. Do you want to, be interviewed? I got Peter Bagg, because I've interviewed him before. So those are like the low-hanging fruit, people I've interviewed before and stuff like that. The wish list, then I put out the wish list for myself, and I said, oh, who would I want if I could get anybody? Dick DeBartolo was on the wish list. Bill Morrison, even though he's a friend, it was a wish list just to see if he would talk about why he got canned, and he did. So
Jaffe?
What?
Was Jaffe on the wish list?
Jaffe was not on the list. And the reason why is because he has been interviewed before, and he's getting pretty elderly, so I could try. He's like, if I can get it, I'll do it, but I'm not going to push it. I mean, I don't try to push a 101-year-old man to talk.
Yeah,
so,
I get it.
And I interviewed him before, so I can use clips from that.
I know people who do interview people at 101. They really push people, and I don't.
Yeah, really, I don't like doing that unless they're willing to do it. So, so my dream now, of all the people that I've gotten or not gotten, of Mad people, like I said, I'd love to get Ficarra. I should probably push a little harder to get Sam Viviano. I've interviewed him before. If I don't, it's no big deal. I've tried to get Charles Cadu. He had a surgery on his tongue, so he's a little self-conscious and I said, it doesn't have to be a podcast interview. I can do it email or some other way. Just haven't committed to it, but I'd like to talk to him because he was an editor too, like a co-editor. Joe Raiola, or how you pronounce his name, he was an editor for a long time too. I've recently tried to approach him. Haven't got any response yet, but that doesn't mean anything, because some people, they just respond out of the blue like 6 months later. Oh yeah, I'll do it. So,
yep.
Haven't really approached like artists and stuff, because a lot of them I interviewed for the Crack Book, so I don't know if I need to interview them again. And I asked them mad questions then, not because I thought I would do a Mad Book, but because, like Sergio, he never worked for Crack, but I interviewed him anyway, and so I asked him a bunch of Crack questions, and I asked him a bunch of Mad questions because I had him on the phone anyway. So I don't know if I need to interview him again.
But you might want to because you're a fan.
Yeah, I might want to, but he's not like, so, so far the Joe Raiola was, I mean, not Joe Raiola, well, he is one, but John Ficarra is one. Dick DeBartolo is one, but I already got him. Annie Gaines, maybe, it's like there, it's, some people it's like, I don't know how important, what they would have to say, and I shouldn't be that way. And I've talked to some people that I won't name names, but they're kind of like they take one side and they don't want to be interviewed because somebody else is being interviewed, and I respect that. So it's like it happens sometimes. It's frustrating in a book where you want all sides of a story and one person won't tell their side of the story because somebody happened in the Harvey book. It happened in the Patty Freeling book, where you don't get one interview because you have another interview, anyway. But
did you not get an interview with David DePatie and your DePatie?
Well, DePatie was an old crank at the time. I could say it now that he's passed on, but he was. And he says, I just interviewed with Jerry Beck and with Charles Brubaker, so you can use their interviews. And it's like, I wasn't going to ask because I already had access to their interviews. I wasn't going to ask what they asked.
Their interviews was well before yours were.
Yeah, that I wasn't going to ask what they asked, but he didn't want to interview with me because he had just interviewed with, according to him, he had just interviewed with Jerry Beck and Charles Brubaker.
Was that for their book that was like, published in like 2006?
No, they weren't published anywhere. I don't think. Yeah, I think Jerry just interviewed him just because he likes to interview people. And Charles, I think he did it just for his own personal use, but he let me borrow it. Neither of them, I don't think, were published anywhere else until my book.
Brubaker had an interview with him when he used to have that DePatie Freeling site.
Yeah, well, he used some of it on that site, but he gave me the full interview. So I had everything. Yeah. I had access to the complete interview. So at least that happened. But I thought DePatie was a little bit of a butt, at the time. But talking to like Art Leonardi and stuff like that, he says, yeah, DePatie can be that way. I'm his friend, and so I go, wow, okay, all right.
Leonardi talked to me one time. I was like, I'd love to talk to Leonardi. And I just get a call from him while I was like outside of Raising Cane's parking lot, which Raising Cane's that originates from Baton Rouge, right? So it's like a chicken chain if you've not heard of it. But
I have not. Okay.
But it's like it's a chain around the U.S., mainly in the East Coast, the southern East Coast. But so
what's it called again?
Raising Cane's.
Yeah, I don't know that one. I was in the South in the 90s, but I guess it's more recent.
Oh, it's much more recent than that.
Okay, yeah. See, I remember, my first exposure to Shoney's, Krispy Kreme. What else is in the South? The Waffle House. That type of stuff. Anyway, go ahead.
Half of those chains are now worldwide.
Cracker Barrel. Well, at the time when I went down there in the 90s, that was my first exposure to any of them. So
yeah.
Anyway.
Now, so I get a call. Leonardi calls me because I talked to his daughter Lisa, and I just said, I just happened to ask her about something else. Then I said, I'd love to talk to your dad. Get a call from. He's like, okay. By the way, what's your phone number? And I didn't connect the two. And he called me the next day, that afternoon.
Oh. so
yeah, I talked to him for about an hour, and I'm like outside this parking lot, food's in the car. The car smells like chicken.
Oh.
And I'm like still eating. Oh well.
Anyway, so I don't know if I said everything about the Mad book, but it's kind of slow going because every time I'm going to try to start working on it again, but I've been working on the Turtles book recently. And it's like every time I think I can work on the Mad book again, something else comes up that I have to work on. So it's like, obviously tonight, since I'm doing a podcast, not working on the Mad book, but had we not done this, I might have worked on it because... but mainly what I'm doing currently on the Mad book is I'm transcribing the old interviews. So I'm listening to old podcasts. I'm kind of jumping around. I'm doing the David Spurlock two-parter because he talks at length about Wally Wood, and that's the closest I'm going to get to actually talking to Wally Wood because Wally Wood didn't do many interviews, and this guy knows everything about him, and so
Now, my final question for you, then we're gonna go.
Okay.
What's your favorite book you've written?
Ooh.
My favorite is the Total Television book, and I know that's a lot of people's favorite.
I guess that one too, but it's not my favorite. The one that I got. There's certain ones for just accomplishment's sake that I'm glad is done, like the Harvey Comics Companion is special because that was the one that I wanted to get done. I wasn't trying to be a book author, I was just wanting to get the Harvey history out properly instead of just in my fanzine. And the fact that it took from 1990 to 2017 to get that done with many false starts and many possibilities of other people doing it and derailing my intentions, because I'm happy that I got mine out first. So that's a special one for me. But as far as what came out the best, what looks the best, probably the Total Television one, the new one, the scrapbook, because finally, even with an error along the way, finally got it in color and the size I wanted. He finally did it the way I wanted it to look, and it's like, and so that's why, and it had the fewest errors.
You think the Total Television book is like the fan favorite too? Because people like that one.
Well, yeah, people like pictures.
Yeah.
It's like
No, I'm talking about the actual the red one.
Oh, the original red one. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, I like that one too, but as far as, what one looks good, I like the current one, the
Right.
scrapbook. I mean, I was really, I'm not proud of it. I was proud of it when it came out, but then since I've done so many others, the only thing I'd redo on any of my books is I wish I could correct all the errors without paying a fee, because it costs money to correct the errors, and most of the time I go, eh. The one I really wish I could correct, and maybe I'll do it, is the Chipmunks one, but I'm leaving it alone because it's doing well, so I don't like changing them when they're doing well. Would I plan to update anymore? Well, I mean, I do updates. I tend to just write another book, because I said this before, is like, I don't really like to do, and I know other authors do this, is they'll do a revised version of the same book. And so I always think that's kind of an annoying thing, because if you're the author, it's like, well, do you keep all 5 versions because you keep revamping it? And then as a fan, oh, well, I have version number 3 and now it's version number 5. I don't want to read. I don't want to buy this book again. It's like, but I have to, because now it has more pages, or it's in color, or it's like,
That was my thing with Daryl Van Sitter's RFJ Word book. I love his RFJ Word book. I have it signed by June Foray because my friend Carol, who works at the Chuck Jones Gallery, she gave me as a birthday present. She found a way to get June and Daryl to sign the book.
Yeah.
So yeah, she really had to get that made. So it was a hunt for her, I know.
Mm-hmm.
But so, and then he comes out with a new version that's 10 pages long. But I'm like, I love that book, but I'm a librarian part-time. I don't have the money to pay $75 for another book.
Oh, you mean when he put out the paperback version and he added a few more pages?
It's like 10 pages.
Yeah. That kind of frustrated me too, but at the same time I go, well, my copy, again, because I met both of them at the same time, it has Daryl's and June Foray's autograph, and you can't.
Carol was at that exact same.
You can't replace that. I mean, but I have, to show you how frustrating it is. So I have 3 copies of Mice and Magic. I have the original one, and then I have the revised one, and then I have the hardback, because they're all different, and I don't know. I asked Leonard Maltin when I met him once. He's on my list, and it's like, would you ever update of Mice and Magic again? And he goes, probably not, because pretty much everything we wanted to say about classic cartoons is in there, and I didn't want to cover the TV cartoons and everything else. I go, fair enough. And actually, I respected him for that. If he wanted to do another book, I would just wish he would do another book about animation, not revising of Mice and Magic. I guess I'll name a name because you mentioned the Daryl Van Sitters one. The one that frustrates me is this guy who does the Spike Jones book, because he's done like 5 versions of it, and I think I have version 2.
My pal Skip Craig wrote the discography for.
Oh, okay. And I don't know which version I have. I think I have the 2nd version or the 3rd version, but
He
it's
just
like,
revised it.
yeah, I know. And it's like, I want all the new stuff, but it's like, and then another one that frustrates me is the Rankin Bass book.
Oh God.
I have the original that was a paperback, even though there is a rare hardback version of that. And then he did a revision. So I did get the revision because there's like 100 extra pages. And then he did another revision, and it's like, because it's not like it's not like it's cheap to rebuy it, and it's like, I'd rather buy a brand new book. Like I bought other books from him, just not the 2nd revision, because I said I don't want to keep buying the same book over again.
Now, in fairness to Daryl, if you buy his Mr. Magoo Christmas Carol, which I have mine, Judy Levito gave me her copy.
Oh, I have
her
mine.
Copy is signed by Bob Singer and all the cast. Wow. And I'm like you didn't have to give me this. And he's like, it's okay, I have another copy. And apparently she gave me hers. So it says all the cast it's signed by all the living cast members, the singers, the dancers, everything. Bob Singer, cool. All the artists. It's like a big wall of signatures. Cool. But now, if you buy the 2nd version, in fairness, the 2nd version of Magoo's Christmas Carol is like 100 more pages. So it's I
didn't even know he had a 2nd version of that one. Okay.
Yeah, and it's not 100. And then there's a 3rd version now with 10 more pages.
I didn't know that. Oh, okay.
Yeah, but
no, I had the 1st version, and the only reason I'm happy about having the 1st version the way I did.
Yeah.
That guy, you probably have heard of him, is I don't know how to pronounce his name. Stuart Ng Books, NG is his last name. Ng.
Stuart Ng, yeah. I don't know how to pronounce his name either. Anyway, I bought that 3 Tuners book from them. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think I did too. But anyway, I don't know. Sometimes he has killer deals. I don't know why. The stupid Magoo book was out of print, and I just missed it. I would have bought it, and I missed it, and it was selling already on eBay for hundreds. And I go, damn it! It's like, I wanted that book, And I think I actually went to Daryl when I saw him for the Jay Ward thing, and I said, any chance you're going to reissue this Magoo book? And he did. He kind of shook his head at the time. So if you say he's revised it twice, I guess he says, there's money to be made there or something. I don't know.
But revised the Jay Ward book.
What?
When he just revised the Jay Ward book, he just revised.
Okay, so he had revised. This is when the Jay Ward book first came out that I was talking to him. So.
Yeah, this was before he revised the Magoo book. Too.
Okay, so he hadn't revised it, but it was long out of print. And I said, "Do you have any extra copies?" No. Do you plan to revise it? No. Okay, And then one day I was just surfing the internet, and Stuart Ng's website came up, and I said, and I don't know what possessed me to just look it up, and I just typed in Magoo, and it was like, not only was it cheap, it was also on sale. And I said, oh my God. And I ordered it, and I got like in a week, and I said, oh, good, now I have it, So I actually got it cheaper than the original price. I don't remember how much.
Yeah. Mine was that I just still didn't have his book, and I asked Daryl, and I said, are you going to revise the book? My same conversation.
Yeah.
He said no. By the way, about a week after I got my copy from Judy, he revised his book.
Yeah.
So but oh well, my copy's signed with the whole cast. So
yeah, well, you can't replace the signatures, so that's the thing.
Yeah, but I'm like, a week in the mail, Judy says, what's your address? I'm like, it's
like, here's one for you, like the June Foray book, the one with Earl Chris and Mark Evans.
Yeah, June signed that for me.
She signed mine, but it wasn't in hardback then, and I prefer it to be in hardback. And I was like, I would have bought it in hardback, but it wasn't available then, so I can't buy it now because she's gone.
Right, but now I finished my story. So he says, what's your address? I'm like, well, it's whatever my old address was. And she says, okay, a week later, I got this copy of this book with like the whole copy of the book, which I didn't even know she knew I didn't have, right? I never even mentioned it to her, right? But and she just casually. What I did mention to her was I asked her if she had that UPA book that Jerry Beck and Amanda Mitty published when they had Cartoon Brew books. Right? You know, that one, that 50-page UPA book.
Oh yeah, I don't even have that one. I wish I did. I have the other UPA book because
It's not. It's like say what you want about a mid, but his Cartoon Modern book is really good.
I don't have that book either, but there's reasons why I didn't buy that, but that's not because
Yeah.
Anyway.
But anyway, so and I got this book, and I think it's Roberta's copy, and I feel really bad, but I don't know if I want to give it back.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm. And well,
now we're done.
We're done. All right. So you
podcast,
want to sign off? This might be 2 episodes here. Okay, so I guess
will be the last one I interview, Mark, gentlemen. So next time it'll be someone better than me if I bring somebody.
Bring someone, please. All right. Well, sign us off here.
See ya.
That's it? What an unprofessional ending. All right. That was another Fun Ideas podcast interviewing me. All right. And I want to thank you, Kamden Spies, for interviewing me. All right. We'll see you next time.